across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, it's Saturday. This is Talk. You're very welcome to the programme. I'm here right through to 1 o'clock today and tomorrow at this time. Are we on the brink of nuclear war? That is the question we're asking this morning in regard to the fact that Donald Trump has put nuclear subs aiming their weapons at Russia. Now, there is a war of words between him and Dmitry Medvedev, who is the former president of Russia. He is now a lackey of Putin. Is this a serious threat or just a bit of willy waving? We will investigate that in a minute or two. Also, almost 1 million NHS free passes handed out to asylum seekers, and the fact that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, under pressure today because South Yorkshire Police will investigate itself, despite the fact that previous officers from the force have been accused of raping young girls, saying to them essentially, come with me and I'll take you away from these gangs, and then raping them themselves. That are very, very serious allegations, and South Yorkshire Police apparently investigating itself. Surely another police force should do that. Let us know your thoughts on all of these stories. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note on the main number. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message, or you can give me a ring on the main number 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss between now and 1 o'clock. Let's be part of the conversation together here on Talk. Well, the US President Donald Trump says he has ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions in response to what he says are highly provocative comments by the former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. This is what the US President has been saying about this.
We had to do that. We just have to be careful. And a threat was made, and we didn't think it was appropriate. So I have to be very careful. So I do that on the basis of safety for our people. A threat was made by a former president of Russia, and we're going to protect our people.
And on Truth Social, Trump has written, based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions. Well, Russia has made no public comment on that so far. Trump has also said words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Thank you for your attention to this matter, said Donald Trump. Well, there is a real worry, of course, that this is something that could lead to escalation in Ukraine as well. There's a deadline that Trump has put on Friday for the Russians to back down, to have some sort of ceasefire in Ukraine. It'll be very interesting to see whether that happens. I think it's unlikely. Also, there's the case of what Trump does next. Does he actually follow through with any of these threats? The nuclear submarines, of course, will always be around. They'll be going through different waters, and it's highly irregular, quite strange, really, for a president of the United States to say, well, actually, they're going to be in the appropriate region. The whole point of a nuclear deterrent is not to know where it is or where it can strike at any point. We'll be talking about that in just a second with the Conservative MP, Sir Christopher Chope. He's the MP for Christchurch. We're also going to talk to Sir Christopher in regard to what is happening in South Yorkshire. And we've had reaction already from Steve, who's been in touch. He says, no one should be surprised over South Yorkshire Police and the Rotherham rape gang scandal. The force were discredited during the miners' strike when dodgy evidence meant criminal cases against miners were dropped and evidence and statements altered after the Hillsborough football disaster. No smoke without fire, they say. Well, Steve, these are only allegations against officers, but they're very, very serious allegations. They're essentially alleging that officers said to young girls who were being exploited by rape gangs, and let's call them rape gangs because that's what they are. Grooming gangs is a very sanitized version of what they are. They're rape gangs. What we are told is that these young women, girls, went to the police and said, save me from these gangs, and they said, right, you don't have to go back to the gangs essentially if you do things of a sexual nature for those officers. Those are the allegations, and South Yorkshire Police is actually investigating itself over that. Is that something that you think should happen, or should there be an external force? What about the National Crime Agency? It's an operational matter for police officers, but the Home Secretary, of course, can have a role in that. She can advise them, she can make her statements public. And interestingly, Nick Timothy, another Conservative MP, has been behind this and has been talking about this and saying that that is a very, very serious thing, and that South Yorkshire Police should not be investigating it herself. The Home Secretary has resisted calls to set up a National Crime Agency investigation. Nick Timothy, the MP, also a former Number 10 Chief of Staff, he claimed this on Friday. Critics say they were shocked the force had been trusted to investigate its own staff, citing cover-up after cover-up. And lawyers for the victims said they were being re-traumatised by the process, or simply refusing to report to the force that treated them so badly. One of the victims, known only as Amy, said requests to hand over the investigation to another independent police force have been repeatedly rejected. Is this yet another feeling of those who have been exploited by rape gangs? Not just the mainly Pakistani gangs that exploited and raped these women and trafficked them, but actually the police forces that were meant to sort it out, that were meant to deal with this. 3 arrests have been made, but no charges brought. The first allegation of child rape against an officer dates back 10 years. The Times newspaper has been reporting this and understands another victim has made allegations of sexual abuse against a Greater Manchester police officer. We know, of course, the Prime Minister has been under pressure. He initially said he wasn't going to do a national inquiry in regard to this. He has U-turned on that. But on these specific allegations and on the fact that there may well be charges against these former officers, well, should those charges be brought in conjunction with the Crown Prosecution Service by South Yorkshire if there are charges to be brought? Well, that is something which is very, very severely compromised. I think, in my view, I don't think South Yorkshire Police should be anywhere near this. I don't think they should be in a position where they are investigating themselves. I don't think that that should happen, and I think that the National Crime Agency or another police force or an outside chief constable with a huge amount of integrity. In Northern Ireland, for example, John Boucher, who is now actually the chief constable in Northern Ireland, but he was at another police force. He was brought in to investigate very, very serious allegations in regard to informers and how things worked there. This is, I think, in a very different way, at least as serious as that, the systematic rejection and indeed the fact that these young women were not properly looked after. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the fact that there are nuclear weapons being pointed at Russia with Sir Christopher Chope at some stage. He's not with us just at the moment. So I'm going to go straight to the debate desk, and I'm delighted that Andy Williams is with me. Hello, sir. How are you? Political commentator. Very good, thank you. And Matthew Goodwin Freeman, who is a political commentator and indeed a Conservative councillor as well. I wonder, first of all, on this matter of Yvette Cooper being accused of blocking an investigation into alleged police rapists. What you make of this, Matthew?
Well, it's pretty much the police are going to be left to mark their own homework, and I don't really understand why Labour haven't learnt the lessons from this grooming gangs fiasco. I really, really can't understand the logic behind not giving an independent investigation into this, because these are serious allegations that have taken place. I mean, 2 instances of women alleging that they were raped in the back of a police vehicle. I mean, you don't want the police marking their own homework in that situation. So I really don't understand why the Home Office and Yvette Cooper have decided to duck this. They could take a stand, they could make a big decision here and say, right, we are going to get an independent investigation into this, but instead they're letting the police mark their own homework. It
is an operational matter, though. Is it fair to criticise the Home Secretary on this? The whole point is that politicians don't get involved in day-to-day police work, which is what this is, because they're looking at allegations against specific people. This is not like a national inquiry. These are specific allegations against former officers.
But it wouldn't be politicians doing this. It would be the National Crime Agency. That's the difference. It would be an independent investigation. It wouldn't be politicians. Let's be clear. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is not the one doing the investigation, doing the reports. It is the National Crime Agency that will be doing this investigation. So I feel really, really strongly that the police should not be marking their own homework on this when we have such serious allegations going on, corruption, rape, sexual abuse within the police force of victims are all being alleged. I do not think that that police force should be investigating its own homework. It should be an independent investigation, and it wouldn't be politicians doing the investigation. It would be the National Crime Agency.
Andy, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, firstly, I think the police in this country, in a variety of ways, across geographically, across many forces over many years, have proved that they're pretty rotten institutions. So I'm not exactly defending the police here, but we can't have a situation where every time someone demands an investigation, an independent inquiry, there are enough independent inquiries going on a range of matters, and we can't have secretaries of state intervening in every single allegation that is made. So I think let due process run, let the police do their job. I take the point about marking your own homework, but I agree with what you said, Peter, which is that this is an operational matter. It's not for the Home Secretary to get involved.
But surely
and the way this is being...
Sorry, I'm just wondering about the process here. I mean, my thought would be, OK, maybe it's not necessarily the Home Secretary's fault, but when it comes to South Yorkshire Police, surely the leadership of that institution says, this is so toxic, this is so incredibly difficult, there have been so many failures here, there's already a national inquiry going on, OK, there are allegations against former officers. Even just an idea of how this will look, that current officers are investigating former officers about this specific topic in a compromised police force, which a lot of people just do not have faith in. Surely you say, as a chief constable, you say, right, do you know what we're going to do? In this particular instance, I am going to ask an assistant chief constable of another force who has no connection to this force to look into this. And that hasn't happened, and that's why this Conservative MP, Nick Timothy, is saying, Home Secretary, sort it out.
Yeah, maybe there is a case for bringing in another force. Absolutely, I don't see anything wrong with that. But I think unfortunately, this is just one of many headlines I've seen the last few weeks that it's just nonsense. Yvette Cooper is not blocking an investigation. She is not sitting in her chair having been presented with the option to launch an independent inquiry.
I mean, they blocked a national inquiry. I mean, they did do that. They have been, the Labour government and previously Conservatives have certainly been in a position where there has been an attempt to investigate these things, and they've pushed that back. That has happened.
Yeah, and there had been a series of other inquiries. What my understanding is, there had not been a nationwide inquiry that in the statutory way compelled people to give evidence on the grooming gangs issue, and that is now happening. There have been previous inquiries, but I have to push back on this narrative that somehow this is a huge institutional cover-up, because I really don't think it is.
I think the victims are going to feel that. I think the victims, we need to think about the victims here at the end of the day. There are 5 women who were exploited by grooming gangs as children, who then claim they were sexually abused by police officers. We need to understand that the victims, how the hell are victims going to trust the police marking their own homework? It's not going to, I'm sorry, but it's not going to happen. I feel really, really passionately about the fact that someone independent, whether it's the National Crime Agency, whether it's an independent barrister, whoever, someone independent come in to investigate this.
Well, I just think, with all due respect, there are allegations made every day about all sorts of crimes, and we need to get away from this idea that we have government by sort of independent inquiry this and investigation
we're not talking about an inquiry
that,
in this
and the
necessarily.
government coming over the top all the time. We have to let the institutions that are responsible for doing their jobs do their jobs.
But surely,
so the institutions who exploited these women, who raped them allegedly in the back of police cars and told them they would be handed back to the gangs if they did not comply, we should let them investigate themselves. I'm sorry, but the victims are not going to trust that.
Surely you have to make a distinction between South Yorkshire Police as an institution and the individuals who are alleged to have done this.
We started off by saying many police forces are rotten. So, hold on, you're saying 1 minute the police force, we cannot trust them. The next minute you're saying that we should let the police do the investigation and trust them.
What we do know, hold on a second, I'll give Andy the word on this, and then I've got to go to the break. Surely what is absolutely clear, that in this case, in this nationally important investigation and issue, essentially, what is absolutely clear is that these victims, as they've said, have no confidence in this police force. So can we all agree that this police force should not investigate itself?
Yeah,
or do you think
I do think that. I think that it would make sense to bring in another police force to independently take a look.
Okay, well, thanks very much. We'll return to this issue in a second. Sir Christopher Chope is available now, and we'll talk to him in just a second. Then I'll get a reaction from our debate desk panellists. Stay with us here on Talk.
Doctors are now saying that he is fit to be released. But there's clearly huge concerns about him being released back onto Britain's streets. Yeah. The police have applied for a notification order, which is kind of a last kind of chance they have to have some sort of control over his release. While in US custody, he said that he was a mastermind of the 7/7 bombings and of 9/11. And this is someone who, you know, we're reporting today that he could be released imminently onto our streets.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Heather, who says the Cold War has never gone away completely. This is a new stage of Cold War, and there's still a threat of a third world war, a nuclear war that will kill civilization across the world. Well, Heather, let's hope that doesn't happen. Barry says if we're close to a nuclear war, Peter, I hope the Russians don't attack us on a weekend. The military knocks off just after lunch on a Friday. Barry, alluding to the story yesterday about Virgin Media talking about 8% dip in the number of people online working from home after 3 o'clock on a Friday. Perhaps we'll talk about that with our debate desk panelist in a second, but I want to talk to Sir Christopher Chope now. He is the Conservative MP for Christchurch. Sir Christopher, good morning.
Christopher, good morning. Hello?
Hello there.
Hello there.
Oh, there's a bit of an echo on the line. Can you hear me all right?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
I'm just hearing myself back. I'll see if our technical wizards can perhaps sort that out behind the scenes. In the meantime, I will just read out a couple more messages. Andy says, get real. There are nuclear weapons being aimed at Russia since they were invented, and everywhere else there might be a threat. Great show, says Andy. Thank you. Don in Chelmsford says, the allegations about the Yorkshire police are very worrying. Our society is under such stress now with illegal migration, high tax and a benefit spiral. We must be able to trust the police, otherwise society will descend. Is Sir Christopher there? Do we know if he is sorted out with his line? I'm afraid I don't know. Oh, I think we are sorted with Sir Christopher. Hopefully we've got you on a clear line now, Sir Christopher.
Is that better?
Much better, much better.
Very good.
Perhaps I could ask you about this story in regard to what Donald Trump has said about about American submarines being pointed at Russia, this row between him and Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Russia. Is this just posturing, do you think, or should we be worried?
Well, I think it's good news in the sense that Donald Trump now seems to have realised that he was rather naive in thinking that he could do a deal with Putin and get an instant peace in Ukraine. And that hasn't worked out, and Putin has continued to act in an aggressive way towards Ukraine, and there are record numbers of missiles and drones affecting people in Kyiv and other cities in Ukraine. And so I think Donald Trump has quite understandably now said enough's enough. We are now going to have to get really tough with Russia and stop messing around pretending to be talking to them.
How tough should it get? Because there is a deadline on Friday in regard to a ceasefire in Ukraine. I think it's highly unlikely that will happen. Maybe you disagree with that. If that deadline comes and goes, what should happen next?
Well, I think the ceasefire is extremely unlikely to happen because the Russians feel that they are in a position where they can win the war, and as some of them are saying, eliminate Ukraine and its citizens. And in those circumstances, the Americans are going to have to lead the West in fighting back really hard and end this talking and actually put in some more forces quickly in terms of weaponry, and allow Ukraine to use the weapons it's already got to attack targets inside Russia, which is what Russia is doing to Ukraine. And so we need to prevent Ukraine having one hand tied behind its back and enable it to be able to defend itself fully.
Is it reasonable, is it appropriate for an American president to do this via social media, to say that that American nuclear submarines are in the area of Russia? I mean, surely the whole point, and actually the precedent, is that you don't say where nuclear submarines are. Surely this is putting American lives in danger.
Well, he hasn't said where the Americans...
He says they're in the appropriate region.
Yes, he said. And what does that mean?
Well, near Russia somewhere.
Well, exactly, and near Russia somewhere. We know that the Russians have got nuclear submarines near us somewhere, but do we know exactly where they are? I think that this is the way in which President Trump talks, and I find it extraordinary that he used his Truth Social, his social media outlet, for making major announcements like this. But that's the way it is.
Tell us your thoughts about this accusation by your colleague in the Conservative Party, Nick Timothy, former number 10 Chief of Staff, who is alleging that Yvette Cooper is blocking proper action in regard to Rotherham, the rape gangs, the fact that South Yorkshire Police is essentially investigating itself over those very serious allegations from rape gang survivors that actually there were police officers in South Yorkshire who were raping them as well.
Well, Peter, I think the whole issue of the rape gangs is just too ghastly to believe, really. But we do know that 1,400 just in Rotherham were victims of this grooming and this outrageous behaviour. And we saw the establishment trying to cover up an inquiry into that, and now we see the establishment trying to cover up an inquiry into the involvement of police officers in it. I'm absolutely fully behind Nick Timothy in his demands that the National Crime Agency should do something about this, and that could be instructed to do that by the Home Secretary.
I mean, she doesn't get involved in operational decisions. She could, of course, make her voice clear on this. We haven't heard from your Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, on this. Should he join the calls?
I think he should, and I understood that he was of the same opinion. But in any event, yes, I think that Nick Timothy is right, and we've got to get to the bottom of this. And it goes to the whole issue of public confidence in the police. And that surely should be something about which the Home Secretary should be concerned. These festering sores are really undermining public trust in the police.
I wonder if I could ask you as well about these many asylum hotel protests. We know, of course, that there are going to be further protests in Islington in London today at one of the main hotels, the Thistle Hotel. So far, certainly the ones in Epping and indeed in Waterlooville have been completely peaceful. There are people standing up for their communities. There are, of course, far left groups like Stand Up to Racism, for example, who are saying that they shouldn't be happening. Surely this is not exactly a ringing endorsement of the democratic process of people like you in Parliament, if people are literally taking to the streets in regard to migration and asylum hotels in their area, Sir Christopher.
Well, exactly, and this is one of the reasons why there's so much disillusionment with our democratic institutions, because we aren't able to deliver on our promises.
So what do politicians like you do to get that trust back?
Well, take some effective action. And my view is that we're not going to be able to stop the boats and take back control over our own human rights laws until we leave the European Convention on Human Rights. And I hope that our leader is going to make an announcement about that at the party conference in October. In the meantime, we've got a government that got elected on a promise to stop the boats, and then he supplemented that with a promise to close the hotels for asylum seekers. Very worthy promises, which everybody would support. But the failure to deliver on either of them is causing mass disillusionment and protest. And if you are living in an area where you feel that people living in migrant hotels are creating a disruption for the local community, and we've got some examples of that in not far from my constituency in Bournemouth, and then not surprisingly people start complaining about it. These protests won't end, in my view, until the hotels are taken out of use and the government honours its promise to stop using them and also honours its promise to stop the boats.
The Sun is also reporting today about the NHS legally required, of course, to provide healthcare services to asylum seekers, but almost 1 million NHS free passes have been handed out in 5 years. These are HC2 certificates. They grant you free prescriptions, dental care, eye test, wigs and travel to appointment. We've heard time and time again of various local authorities, councils, that have given extra privileges to asylum seekers, whether it's use of leisure centres, whether it's getting into things like fireworks displays for free, all sorts of ways in which access to council facilities are given. Here we have the NHS giving nearly 1 million free passes. There are lots of people who have to pay for prescriptions, dental care, eye tests, wigs and travel to appointment who will not be getting these things, people who've paid into the system. Do you support this, or what's your view on it?
Well, I think the NHS and the NHS Business Services Authority in particular, which is responsible for this, is behaving in an extraordinary way. We've got, I think, in the last year, 400 such passes, 4,000 such passes were issued. And 40,000 such passes were issued, and 3/4 of them were for asylum seekers. And that's just ridiculous. I have a constituency case where somebody who's on pension credit mistakenly thought that she was entitled to a free dentistry, and she was then fined for having made an honest mistake, and that was implemented by the NHS Business Services Authority. This is an absurd policy, and what we should be doing is adopting policies which make it clear to asylum seekers that they are not welcome in this country, and that they will not be given privileges greater than those which are applied to our own citizens.
OK, Christopher, thank you. That's Sir Christopher Chope there, who is the Conservative MP for Christchurch, joining us on the programme this morning. Thank you to Dan in Kent, who says Trump doesn't care about Ukraine. Your guest is deluded. Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize as a legacy. It's as simple as that. Betty says it's a great but sad show this morning. We normally have sad shows these days. I'm sure the stuff on cops was out years ago. Well, certainly these exact allegations, specific allegations in regard to these particular South Yorkshire former officers are just this week, Betty. But that's why nobody accepted findings in the first investigations. Was it in one of the documentaries? Yeah, I mean, like, there's been fantastic documentaries on this, including one on Channel 4 recently, which Keir Starmer apparently hasn't watched, even though it's so important to make government policy after adolescence, which is fictional. Anne in Yorkshire says, good morning, Peter. The rape gangs got away with exploiting these girls because they knew that if the police investigated them, the gangs would incriminate police officers who also participated in raping these vulnerable girls. They were both at it probably from the top down, so they were allowed to continue with their vile crime by the police who were in fear of incrimination. Fabulous show. I listen every time you're on. Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate that. That's Anne in Yorkshire there. Stuart says, for most of my life I looked upon the police with respect and as an essential part of the British culture, but I'm afraid I no longer think this, and I believe the police have now chosen sides. It's not the side of good and patriotic British people. Helen in Boston and Lincolnshire says, how about the military police heading the investigation into South Yorkshire Police? These girls need answers, having been failed again and again. And thank you to a very kind message from Margaret in Birmingham as well. It would be inappropriate for me to mention that she loves the cover of my new book, which is out on the 15th of September. Lots to discuss on the debate desk, including what Sir Christopher Chope was saying there. Andy and Matthew are standing by. We'll be back with them in just a minute here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go back to the debate desk. Andy Williams is with us, the political commentator. Matthew Goodwin-Freeman, who's a Conservative councillor and commentator. Great to have you with us. What were the things that Sir Christopher was saying there that piqued your interest, Andy?
Well, I don't often agree with Christopher Chope, certainly not on the death penalty, for example, but I thought on Trump he was very sensible and actually pointed out that Trump, in so many ways, is playing fast and loose with American security. I mean, it is unprecedented, as far as I can recall, that a US president would give away, obviously not specifically, but to some extent, any detail at all of something as serious as where nuclear weapons were being positioned. And I mean, it's only a few months since they were, his administration, not Trump himself, his administration were planning operational matters around bombing Yemen on, I think it was Telegram, on an app, and then adding journalists into that group. So Trump is an aberration in terms of his, I think, lack of respect and slapdash attitude on American security.
Is a slapdash attitude to American security, Matthew?
No, I mean, this is what Trump does. He does everything in the public forum. He just says stuff and then sees what the reaction is, and then backs down from it afterwards. Normally is the thing.
Sir Christopher Chope was saying there actually this is good because previously he's been duped by Putin. He was basically everybody else was saying Putin's a wrong one.
Yeah.
And then Trump was
they've got this ceasefire that's supposed to come in on Friday's the deadline.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And I actually, for one, looking at everything that's happened with this Ukraine and Russia war, and since Trump came back in, almost at the start siding with Russia, it was so strange. Stopping weapons to Ukraine, stopping funding, all this sort of stuff. I finally hope he's realising that Putin will say one thing to you and then do exactly the opposite the next minute as soon as the phone's hung up.
Although at least Trump, what I supported in regard to Trump was the fact that he was at least talking about the end of the war rather than simply saying, let's just have more weapons and continuation. Yeah. And even in the last, it's got worse really since January, and within the last 24 hours, 31 people have been killed in the Kyiv area. I wonder, Andy, whether you think this is something that is actually just a bit of my nuclear weapon's bigger than your nuclear weapon kind of stuff, or is this actually serious?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. Trump's a showman. He is the ultimate TV president. He is doing presidency by Truth Social, which, by the way, he's making an enormous amount of money out of. But I think, Trump was naive in the first instance about Putin, but he's not the first world leader to be naive about Putin. I think the reason we're in this position is because successive US presidents and prime ministers of the United Kingdom, Blair in particular, George W. Bush, thought that they basically could manage Putin, and guess what? You can't. And I think that's what we've realised, is that the West for too long was complacent about what Putin was prepared to do. And I think you're right, it is good that he's talking about and thinking about ways in which we might end the war, rather than just almost writing it off and saying, well, this is a forever war now. We can't have that. We're in a situation where it's over half as long, this invasion of Ukraine, as World War II now. It's been going on for an incredibly long time. It's going to cost hundreds of billions of pounds to get Ukraine
and Trump
back
said he could end it in 24 hours, and that hasn't happened.
He did, but everyone knew that was.
But we're arguably no closer now to the Ukraine war ending than we were when Trump took office, Matthew.
No. And let's be clear as well, all of this posturing about the position of nuclear submarines, these nuclear submarines are always there. They are always in the ocean, somewhere around the world. We don't know where they are. All he's saying is, well, by the way, we've got two nukes facing you. Don't mess around, Putin. We've got two nukes facing you. They're always there. It's just the fact that he's telling us publicly.
Yeah, that's the difference.
I wouldn't want. I'm sure Putin and Trump are listening in. I'd just like to ask them both, please don't nuke the world. Let's calm down. Let's settle in. Let's sort out a ceasefire.
Imagine there was nuclear war. What would be? And you knew, you've got 10 minutes. What would you do, Andy? What would be the thing that you would do?
Happy Saturday. God.
Well, champagne supernova is about 8 minutes, isn't it? So probably do that.
Yeah.
And then I've got 2 minutes left. I might watch the highlights of England 5, Germany 1 from 2001 on YouTube, and that'd be that. I'd be happy.
Then you'd be into nuclear oblivion, Matthew. You weren't expecting me to ask that.
Yeah, happy Saturday. Come in, let's talk about what's going to happen in the... spend time with family. You know,
No, of course.
It's all you do. You spend time with your family and your loved ones.
Yeah, well, let's hope we don't get there.
But it's not going to happen. We're going to de-escalate. This show is going to be the thing that brings the de-escalation.
It's going to be fine. We're going to get them back from the edge. We're going to talk to Mark in Chester in just a second about that story in regard to the rape gangs. We're going to get his perspective. I want yours as well. 0344 499 1000. We'll take a short break. Then we'll put Mark's points to not just to me but also to Andy and to Matthew as well. Stay with us here on Talk.
You can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I haven't got time. Don't tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people, then we can solve that problem like that.
You won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why? Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted, laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
and
this.
And actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's speak to Mark in Chester. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. You can too. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say about this scandal in regard to South Yorkshire Police?
I don't believe that any inquiry, if it's got to have any credibility, could have police forces looking into other police forces, because at the end of the day, they're all one family. If there's a massive riot going on in another county, the next county comes in to help them. So it's keeping it in-house all the time. And there's accusations about these rape gangs with Labour councillors and social services involved and everything. I believe it should be just totally independent of the establishments, as far away from it as you can get.
How independent can you get? How independent would you want to go? Would you want to bring in someone from another country? What would you want to do?
Well, that's the thing, whether it's judicial or it's... And then there'd have to be, like you say, how far can you actually take it?
Yeah. Who do you trust institutionally, Mark? I mean, who would you, if you heard, a certain person or an institution or an organisation was to look into this specific matter or rape gangs in general, who would you want that to be, do you think?
Well, again, it's got to be somebody totally independent and vetted for political persuasion. The Home Secretary is a Labour MP at the end of the day, and there's accusations, and I'm saying accusations, of Labour councils in the north of England being involved in this scandal. So surely there's a possibility of a bias there somewhere along the line. I think their politicians and the police forces involved should take a massive step back to give these inquiries credibility. Because at the end of the day, everyone goes, here we go, another cover-up, another whitewash. And we're getting nowhere and spending years doing this and vast amounts of money. And I just feel quite strongly about it.
Mark,
I can understand these victims being very upset.
OK, Mark, stay where you are just for a second. I'm going to go to Andy and to Matthew for their thoughts on what you've said there and then come back to you, I promise. Let's start with Matthew, then Andy.
Mark is completely right. You're completely right, Mark. Absolutely. It's all about trust. It's all about who are we going to trust to do this investigation. And that's why as I said at the start, I think the National Crime Agency should be looking into this, completely independent, no police forces involved, no other police forces involved. I think that's the most independent we can get. That is the problem, though. It's all about who are we going to be able to trust. Victims are not going to trust this police force. So, yeah, I completely agree with what Mark says.
Andy?
Well, according to Mark's diagnosis, the National Crime Agency would be far too close to the police and too institutional to look into this. So
he didn't say that at all.
Mark can answer for himself. But what I haven't heard from Mark is, OK, so we're saying we need someone totally independent. So what I'd like to hear is who.
Mark, do you want to answer that? I mean, do you think the National Crime Agency would be OK to do this? What do you think?
Well, again, it's all down to trust, as your panel's saying. Who can you actually get and feel you're going to get a good deal out? You're going to get a fair crack of the whip out of it, basically.
Yeah,
definitely not the own police force investigating itself. That is not acceptable.
Certainly.
No, they're all part of the same family, aren't they? It's marking your own homework, isn't it? It's like me
exactly what I said. Yeah.
Mark, thanks for your thought.
I've spilled paint on the floor in the front room, so I'll go in the back kitchen and give myself a good talking to. You know what I mean?
Mark, listen, thanks for your points. That's Mark in Chester. You want to add to the conversation, put a point in the next 10 minutes or so to Andy and Matthew. Let us know your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. We'll be talking about this more in just a few minutes' time, but I actually want to just talk about something else, which is the migrant hotel protest. There's going to be another one today in Islington in London, which is where the Thistle Hotel is. We've seen them in Epping, we've seen them in Waterlooville, previously over the past 10 days or so. Completely peaceful so far. Let's hope it stays that way. No arrests in either of those ones that I have mentioned and minimal arrests in others. The fact is that quite a number of people feel very, very strongly about this. Clearly the political process has failed to some degree. These protests are continuing, they're growing. I just wonder, Andy, what you make of them.
Obviously everybody has the right to protest in a free country as long as they're doing so peacefully and in a non-violent way, and nobody is questioning that. However, the reality is that a significant proportion of the people who are protesting outside these hotels are fully paid up, active representatives of the far right.
How do you know
Where is your evidence? That's ridiculous. It's mums and dads from the local community standing up for their rights. That's ridiculous.
I'm sorry. Well, please let me finish. I feel really I feel really strongly about this. I'm sorry, and I'm going to get a ton of stuff from the far right on Twitter about this. These are people, firstly, who need to get a grip. Secondly, you can tell just by looking at the protests. Let's assume that your really strongly held view is we're really deeply concerned about some of the issues that might arise from migrants being in hotels. Why do you need to take your England flag with you? Why do you need to? Why has it got anything to do?
What's wrong with having an England flag?
Because obviously these people are representatives of the far right, and it's got nothing. It's got nothing. No. But that's not what I said. carrying an England flag or carrying a Union Jack does not make you far right. But if you turn up, and often you've travelled from tens or in some cases hundreds of miles to a hotel to chant England, England with an England flag, guess what? I think you probably are a member of the far right.
Why do you think that?
I think
What's wrong with
you're being
that?
disingenuous.
I'm being disingenuous. Why?
I do think you're being
Why?
disingenuous to say that they're absolutely not. I mean, it's very, very clear. In the same way as time and time again, people are saying that people who are out there on pro-Palestinian protests are pro-Hamas, and many of them are, by the way. Many of them are. But it's the same thing. They're carrying Palestinian flags, they're shouting pro-Hamas slogans, they're probably pro-Hamas. Many of, not all, many of these people, you can call them patriots, mothers, fathers, whatever, concerned citizens, many of them are members of the far right. We've seen it. The protest today is being organised partly by a group called Patriots of Britain. It is run by an ex-member of the BNP. You don't get much more far right than that. It is absolutely crystal clear that many of the people involved in these protests are far-right thugs. And we saw it in Southport last year. Not everybody involved in those protests were far-right thugs, but many of them were. I keep hearing that Lucy Connolly is a martyr who is in prison to somehow represent all of these people. She's got 20 months left in prison. I hope she serves every single one of them. She's exactly where she deserves to be. She is the standard bearer for the far right. And I think,
Andy, that's outrageous. That is an outrageous suggestion.
I'm sorry. We have to call this out.
All right, you've been talking
for
a few minutes now. I just want to ask you, how can you call someone a thug when not a single arrest has been made at Epping, at Waterlooville? You're calling people thugs, and actually what they're doing is protesting peacefully.
I'm saying some of them are, and I'm saying the
but
way
if they haven't done so
many
in
of them are.
You said many of them, and you've also said that they're thugs. Now, how can you call people thugs if there hasn't been a single arrest at those events? They're not. It
depends on your definition.
Protest.
Depends on your definition of peaceful. I mean, I think the behaviour has been extremely intimidating. I think it has been unpleasant for some of the communities who are there. I would say, by the way, I don't think that groups like Stand Up to Racism help by organising counter-protests. I think that just antagonises the situation and raises the temperature.
Does you calling these people far right help?
Well, I don't think it helps when there are people who are denying what is plain to see in front of them, which is that many, but as I said, not all, of these people are. I'm calling a spade a spade. These people, many of them, are of the far right.
I think Matthew Goodwin Freeman might be about to spontaneously combust. Matthew, go ahead.
Well, sorry, let me just pull out the Union Jack there, because apparently that makes me part of the many far right that we've got.
It's not what he said.
Listen, I've just sat and listened to your 4-minute. I've sat and listened to your 4-minute clip that you're going to put out later on. So why don't you let somebody else speak for a minute?
I never posted anything.
I'm sorry,
let him speak.
You said the people who are going to these protests need to get a grip. Tell that to the mums and dads who are scared for their children's safety in these communities where illegal migrants are being housed in hotels and free to wander the streets with nothing to do, so just sit there in the town centres waiting for something to happen. You tell that to the mums and dads. You say that carrying around an England flag apparently makes you part of this thuggish group. No, I'm sorry, but tell that to all the people carrying around their England flags last week to celebrate the Lionesses winning the... No, Andy, we've just listened to your rant. You can listen to it for a bit. Taste the medicine for once. It took you 4 minutes to finally mention Stand Up to Racism. 4 minutes. I'm sorry, but you are I completely agree with you on that point, Andy. Antifa and Stand Up to Racism should not be going to these protests to then stir up trouble.
Correct.
That is where the problem is. And the irony of those groups going to these protests and saying, refugees are welcome here, but by the way, I can't take one into my house or I'm not willing to pay for their, the taxpayer funds for it. Well, I'm sorry. We have 25,000 illegal migrants who have come over this year. It's forecast to cost us £19 billion a year. Stand Up to Racism, Antifa, why don't you guys fund it instead of the British taxpayer? I'm sorry, but you talk about it's intimidating, these protests. Tell that to Jewish Londoners who feel scared to walk around this capital city every single weekend because there are Palestinian protests.
I agree with that.
I agree with your point about the Palestinian protests, making Hamas chants and Hamas slogans and things like that. I completely agree that that's going on. We have evidence of that happening week in, week out, and the police do very, very little to arrest them. I am sorry, but for you to say that it's many people who are protesting at these are far right is completely not true. You have no evidence of that. It is mums, dads and families in the local area looking after their local community. And this is the problem. The left are all too happy to say whatever it is to get the clicks and to get the views. You need to go out there and actually speak to people in this country and listen to the concerns people have. People in this country are fed up and people in this country are scared. It is all about fairness. Every story we've talked about today is about fairness.
Matthew,
and British people are back of the queue right now.
I think you've made your points there. So is Andy. Would you like to respond to that, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know what these, you know, you say these migrants living in hotels are free to wander the streets. Well, firstly, I think they should be, because the alternative is locking them up.
They should be locked up. They're illegal migrants. They crossed the channel illegally and invaded this country. They are illegal migrants.
I really, really dislike the language of invasion. I think it is.
I really dislike calling mums and dads many far right, but hey ho, you know, you can say what you want.
You can be a mother or a father and also be a member of the far right. I mean, then those two things are not mutually exclusive. And I mean, talking about the lionesses last week, of course, that's the whole point, is that, of course, going out and celebrating something as wonderful as that is absolutely legit, right? But
protesting to keep your community safe and your children safe.
Can you genuinely explain to me? I really, really, honestly don't know the answers. If you can tell me.
I'm not the one who needs to explain themselves right now, Andy.
You're
very much the one who needs to.
Anyone in the studio or anyone who's listening, explain to me why, if you are attending a protest, a peaceful protest outside a migrant hotel, why you need to take any flag with you. Why?
But what does it matter? Why does it necessarily matter?
You're not allowed flags unless Andy Williams says so.
Because it's absolutely...
He's not trying to ban them, he's questioning it.
Well, you're not allowed them at a protest, apparently.
No, it's not that you're not allowed them.
No, I'm sorry, but it's diversion.
He's questioning why. He's not saying we should ban flags. He's saying why do you
diversion.
He's asking the question.
It's complete diversion.
I don't understand why you would need to take one with you, unless it was... Because the thing about the St George's flag is that it is both a symbol of national pride for people who genuinely care about England or Britain, in the case of the Union Jack, and take it to football tournaments, etc. It is that. But it can also, in context, be a symbol of the far right. It can.
It can, but it doesn't mean it is.
But in this case it is,
but Andy, I'm sorry, you are wrong. People carry around flags because they are proud of that country. You can allege as much as you want that people carry around the England flag because they are far right, but go and get the evidence of it. Go to those protests and survey everyone there and find out if they are far right or whether they are concerned mums and dads. And I'm telling you, the many are not. It is unacceptable for you to allege this with no evidence. This is exactly the problem. It's hypocritical of you.
It's not unacceptable because we're the Home
I carry around the Union Jack because I am proud of this country. That doesn't make me far right. It makes me proud.
Didn't say it was.
We've got about 1 minute left. He hasn't called you far right. Andy, we've got about 1 minute left, and I want you to explain your view in terms of getting a grip on this, because there's so many people who feel very aggrieved, who really feel as if we're being taken for a ride here, and that there are so many aspects of, as Matthew mentioned, unfairness in the system. What did you mean by get a grip?
So clearly the system is broken, right? It absolutely is, and the status quo is not acceptable. And I understand why people think that illegal migration is out of control and is deeply unfair. I think in too many of these conversations, people conflate legal and illegal migration, and we need to be clear about what's what. We need to be clear about the fact that some of the people who are coming over on small boats are genuine asylum seekers, but we also know that the majority are economic migrants. And absolutely, we need to get a grip on this very, very complex problem. But we also need to call out for what it is: people scaremongering, people engaging in conspiratorial language, and people travelling halfway across the country in some cases to protest outside hotels. Clearly they don't have enough other things to do, and I just think we have to be honest about what's happening.
Thank you to both of you, Andy Williams, political commentator, and Matthew Goodwin-Freeman, who is a Conservative councillor and commentator. What do you make of those comments and the debate that gents have had this morning? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. We're going to talk about that South Yorkshire scandal as well in just a few minutes. Be sure to stay tuned for that. Loads to discuss between now and 1. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk. Thank you so much for your company. Well, Andy Williams has certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons on migration. He has made some very strong comments, and we will let you have your say on that, because we're the home of free speech, and just as Andy's entitled to his free speech in this station, so are you. Give me a ring, 0344 499 1000, and let me know what you thought of what he had to say on migration. There's plenty to discuss. We're also going to talk about South Yorkshire Police in a second. We'll speak to Marilyn Hawes, who's the Chief Executive for Freedom from Abuse. Who should look into South Yorkshire Police, because there are allegations that there were police officers who were raping girls and actually saying that if the girls did what they wanted them to do, well, they would keep them away from those gangs. A horrific situation. Very strong allegations. They've been made before, more this week. Who should look into them? The police force that's accused of actually doing it, or someone else? Let me know your thoughts on that as well. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk to the Reform UK councillor as well, who confronted Sadiq Khan on knife crime. That has got so much worse in London. He ignored her and she was told to write in. I wonder if she'd get a response from the mayor. We'll also talk about AI, because artificial intelligence is apparently going to mean that many jobs disappear. Could your job be in the firing line from artificial intelligence? Apparently journalists are, so it's been nice, but apparently it's ending. We'll also talk as well about the Online Safety Act, because there's a lot around about that this week. There's a lot of things that people can't get online. I'm not talking about pornography and things like that. I'm talking about the fact that there was a Conservative MP, for example, who made a speech about rape gangs, and Twitter decided to censor that. So I think there's a lot to be worked out in regard to the Online Safety Act. Does it work? Is it working? We'll debate that later on, and I'd love to know your thoughts as well on all these topics. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can also send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 1 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, lots of reaction to what Andy Williams has just said there. One person says Andy's far-right rant was bizarre. His attack on Lucy Connolly was equally bizarre. People who share Andy's views are the problem, says Dawn. Gary says, I'm not a member of the far-right, whoever they are, but I don't want illegals in my country. Good morning, Peter, says Steve. That Andy and people like him are the whole problem with this country. That's Stephen in Bristol there. Larina, I think it's how you pronounce it, in Nottinghamshire, says, morning Peter, I would rather be a far-right thug than an oblivious lefty who has his head up his own backside so he can blindly follow the rhetoric of a Supreme Leader Starmer. As a mum, I'm so angry, and it has made me to want to go out and peacefully protest with all my fellow thugs. Thanks, Peter. Love, Larina in Nottinghamshire. Steve says, sorry, but Andy is deluded. It only takes a quick look at towns and cities across the country that have changed beyond recognition. Cover-up after cover-up. Protesting does not make you far right. Yes, some will be, but just look at the far left, just as bad, if not worse. Now the normal everyday people have had enough, and whatever happens is all the fault of politicians. It all started with Blair. One more, Adrian Baird, who says, Andy is outrageous. I live near Epping. All the protesters I have met have been locals. The only long-distance travellers were those who attended that Thursday when protesters were escorted by the police carrying socialist workers' banners. Thank you, Adrian, for that. Haven't heard from you in a little while, Adrian, so it's great to hear from you. Again, your comments are always welcome here at Talk. 0344 499 1000 for the WhatsApp messages, and indeed text as well, 87222. I will actually do one more from Esme, who says, your guest is an absolute ideological moron. I am not far right, but I would carry an England flag to a march because guess what? I'm English. I love and I want to promote safety in my own country. How dare he accuse people that carry an English flag of being far right, says Esme. I will say that he wasn't accusing everybody who carries an England flag of being far right. I will also say for Andy, he's more than capable of looking after himself, but he also has not been entirely uncritical of Keir Starmer on the number of different times that I have spoken to him. Let me know what you think of what Andy said and anything else you want to talk about. 0344 499 1000. Right, I want to talk now about this story in regard to South Yorkshire Police. Yvette Cooper has been accused of blocking an investigation into police rapists. This is by a Conservative MP. His name is Nick Timothy, and this is because this week 5 women who were exploited by grooming gangs as children claimed they were also sexually abused by officers in Rotherham at the time. 2 of them said they were raped in the back of police cars and told they would be handed back to the gang if they did not comply. So who should look into South Yorkshire Police? Is the Home Secretary to blame? Who is to blame for this? What should happen? Can the police police themselves? What about the National Crime Agency? Lots to discuss with Marilyn Hawes, who is Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse. Do you think, Marilyn, thank you for joining me this morning,
Hi, Pete.
Do you think that the Home Secretary is specifically to blame here, or is she being accused unfairly, do you think?
Well, she is part of it, and she's a huge part of it. She is the Home Secretary. She's the person that should be actioning all of this. But, you know, when did in this government, when has anything happened that they said would happen? We have now got, hopefully, a proper judge-led inquiry going to happen. This should be without fear or favour. No one should be allowed to hide under the stone or the rocks. And the South Yorkshire Police, we knew what was going on 10 years ago. So did Alexis Jay. So did Sammy Woodhouse. So did Maggie Oliver. So did Sarah Champion. Those people should come back and, you know, people like Sarah Champion, people like Maggie Oliver, and dish the dirt because they know the truth. And some of the paperwork and the documents has been lost. You know, Yvette Cooper should resign about this because they're all the same. Starmer's the same. They say one thing and then they do the Italian.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Professor Alexis Jay there. Her public inquiry found there were 1,400 child victims of grooming gangs in Rotherham. She said she was shocked that South Yorkshire Police were being allowed to investigate its own officers.
They can't be trusted. They can't be trusted.
Who should investigate them, do you think, Marilyn?
Well, you could say the National Crime Agency would be obvious, but the Attorney General can't because he's in Starmer's pocket, isn't he? He's his best friend. He's also human rights, but he doesn't seem to understand the human rights of the victims. And there's, you know, you've got to look at some of this stuff. A guy called Basharat Hussain, he actually admitted that he had a CID officer on his payroll so that he would not be busted by the police. Now, they had 47 complaints to the IOPC and 2 written warnings and prosecutions to 47 officers, right? And nothing happened. 2 written warnings, but no prosecutions. And Spitalski's solicitors, there's a lady I saw on the news, Amy Chowry, I think her name was. There are 5 women that she is helping, and that has gone to the IOPC and the National Crime Agency. So now you think, would they be the best people? Because she reported these 5 allegations in 2022 and nothing happened until 2024. Now, the Home Office is stated as saying every historic case will be fully investigated. Well, that's not true, is it? Because if they're going to now protect the police, then it's transparently obvious that it's a cover-up. You're going to have an inquiry that is also already suffering from cover-ups. And let's think, we didn't know this would happen? It's outrageous. I mean, what was going on with those girls in the backs of police cars is absolutely horrendous. Sammy Woodhouse was made pregnant by one of these grooming gangs. And yes, I know that Twitter X blocks stuff. You know, well, hello, do we have free speech in this country? You know, I mean, it's dreadful. One little girl called Willow, she actually named the police officer who raped her as PC Hassan Ali. Now, he was killed in a road accident. He's no longer able to sort of stand trial or anything. But these girls...
Or to defend himself, yeah.
Yeah, and defend himself. But, I mean, it is outrageous. And it's like they're marking their own... The IOPC, there's just a load of police officers who are... got another job title, they are marking their own homework.
The problem here is trust, isn't it, Marilyn? Because
there is no trust.
Well, you clearly don't trust the government. You clearly don't trust the police service. You clearly don't trust those who are meant to be independent and to look into these things. What should happen? I mean, there are so many people like yourself who've been indefatigable campaigners for a national inquiry. That's now happening, although this is specifically, these specific allegations are specific criminal allegations, and they are allegations at the moment, we need to be careful about that, but nonetheless, we're in a situation where those, of course, have to be investigated in a criminal way. Who should do that? I mean, what would your solution be? Would you get another police force? Would you get an external person, a judge? Would you get someone from another country? What would you do?
No, I would get an external person. I mean, I think Alexis J did a great job. Unfortunately, with the so-called, I don't call them grooming gangs, they're rape gangs, there wasn't enough deep dive into how this was going on in the report she did. There was like 2 or 3 pages of it where a lot of it was centered on the church and the schools and big organizations. They should have done a much deeper dive on it, and she was very good at what she did, and I'd like to see her come back.
Although would she be qualified to do a criminal investigation?
Well, that's why it would have to be, I think, someone from the National Crime Agency, I can only think of, or even Europol, someone who is independent, someone that, I mean, who do you trust when this has been such a cover-up, where almost the government had to be shamed into looking into these rape gang inquiries?
The national inquiry will occur now. Do you believe this issue will ever be a settled one? Will there ever be a time, no matter what that inquiry comes up with, no matter what these investigations and criminal investigations happen, do you ever believe there'll be a time where we say justice has been done?
No, because those that have come forward, yes, but this situation, Peter, I keep saying it, is still happening across the UK. If they had sorted this out, and I know you and I have had this conversation before, if they had sorted this out 35 years ago when they knew this was beginning, instead of going, oh, it's racist, oh, it's racist. I have been talking about Pakistani gangs for years, and I am not racist, that you've got to face the facts and you have to name it for what it is. And Bangladeshis, you have to name it for what it is. And of course, it's not all of them. That would be insane. But some of them are. And you've only got to look at the mugshots. Why do the Home Office not have any, well, they will now, but I mean, they've never held any ethnicity on the people that are in these gangs because they don't want to be seen to be racist. And what it's doing, it's causing more racism than smoothing it out. And then match that with what you were talking earlier about the illegal migrants coming in. If you don't know who's coming into your country, then you shouldn't be having them in. You don't know. A lot of these will be coming in with criminal records from their own country. We have a good system of holding criminal records here. We have the DBS stuff and all of that. Other countries don't. And then they throw their paperwork in the channel. So you've got more problems coming in. You heard it from Donald Trump on up in Scotland the other day. If the right people, you're welcome, come in, make a contribution to our country, work with us and abide by our laws.
Okay.
This is just outrageous. It is, if they'd sorted it at the start, they could have nipped it in the bud. It is now endemic across society. And I'm sorry to say that, but it is in everywhere, okay, around the coastal places, all up across the country. It's everywhere. And I hope there will be justice for those that have come forward and so bravely come forward. And these people, as soon as they're found out who they are, deport them.
Okay.
Deport them. We don't want them here.
Marilyn, thank you. That's Marilyn Halls there. He's the Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse, joining us this morning here on Talk. Mike is in Stoke-on-Trent and has given me a ring about this on 0344 499 1000. Mike, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, first thing I'm doing is grabbing your breath.
Sorry, Mike, you're fading away there. Are you there?
I'm there.
Okay, go ahead. Didn't hear what you just said there, Mike.
At the moment, I'm absolutely spitting. I mean, listening to what's gone on this morning. Right, the idea of who can investigate South Yorkshire Police.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a daft idea, but bear with me, you'll understand.
Okay.
Go to the military,
mm-hmm,
Army, Navy, Air Force,
yep,
get the military police and get their detectives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm ex-Navy. Our lot used to be known as the Crushers,
mm-hmm,
because they did not take fear or favour. They didn't care if you were an able seaman or an admiral of the fleet. If you were under investigation, they went for you.
They investigated.
And they didn't care about any repercussions. They were there to do a job. Get them in, turn them loose. Army, Navy, Air Force. Get their top lads in.
That's the way to do it.
I watch South Yorkshire cringe. Other thing, this Andy Williams,
yep,
I'm sorry, as far as I'm concerned, he's a disgrace to the human race. If he wants Lucy Connolly to spend the rest of her term in prison, Get all the rapists back in who got early release and make them serve every single day.
Mm-hmm. And there are, ironically, and to prove your point, there are people who have been convicted of rape who have been sentenced to less time and served less time than Lucy Connolly has served so far.
If I remember, I'll stand to be corrected, I think there's one recently that actually got a suspended sentence.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
You know, I mean, so how, what Lucy said was wrong. Don't get me wrong, I don't agree with what
she should have got a police caution. She should have got a police caution.
I also think that the solicitor who advised her to plead guilty should seriously look at his own moral fibre.
Is it not a bit much, Mike? Is it not a bit much to say that Andy's a disgrace to the human race? I mean, he's entitled to his view, is he not?
He is entitled to his opinion, but I'm sorry, if he's saying that people like me are far right, because I've got a 10-year-old granddaughter. Now, let's be honest, I'm on crutches, but I will do anything I can and anything I have to protect her. And I don't care how bad it gets.
Okay.
I am not going to risk having I don't let my granddaughter go out and play unless there's somebody watching her.
Yeah.
And mothers are the same.
Yeah.
And this is a 10-year-old. You're watching them day and night.
Mike,
I live in Stoke-on-Trent. I mean, get people to come up here and see what we're living with.
Okay. Mike, thanks very much indeed for your call there. That's Mike in Stoke-on-Trent there. We'll talk more about Andy Williams's comments. Plenty of you want to get your voice heard on that. H says Andy Williams is a disgrace. Pauline says what an idiot Andy is. How dare he label protesters far right. I'm amazed at his ignorance, says Pauline. Joanna from Salisbury says Cardi P, Andy is an idiot. These people are reminding the government that it is British people who have had enough. Their local families afraid. How could he feel it was a reminder? Sorry, that's a bit mangled there, but just in the system, not what Joanna's saying, but I think we got the point there. And thank you as well to Julia, who says Andy is in cloud cuckoo land. Wake up and smell the coffee. We've had enough. I'm a patriot. I would fly an English flag if I could. You should have been at the Norwich protest. There were local people with very strong Norwich and Norfolk accents. Labour is crushing the British spirit, says Julia, who is in Norwich. We will discuss this more. Andy has had a say. You can have yours. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, unsurprisingly, Andy Williams has made you angry. Lots of people are responding. He's had his say. Now it's time for yours. This is what Nick believes.
Morning, Peter. It's Nick Moore from Loughborough. Andy Williams was a left-wing commentator who I always had more than a modicum of respect for, but I'm afraid today he's just blown it. His argument doesn't hold any water at all, and I'm astounded at the bile and invective that he was coming out with against these peaceful protesters in Epping. I'm saddened, really. Anyway, Peter, have a good weekend.
Nick, thank you. Mike has been in touch.
Morning, Peter. Mike from Lancashire. Your guest, Andy Williams, is an absolute disgrace. Talking about Lucy Connolly like that. He thinks everybody is a far-right thump because he is so far-left. I'm sorry, Peter, but he just maddens me. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks very much for your message. Just a friendly reminder to everybody, I please turn down your telly or your radio just when you're making the, when you're recording your voice note, if you wouldn't mind. Just because there are some people who don't have great hearing, who just need it to be nice and clear when they hear the voice note. We want to make sure you are heard because we're the home of free speech. Andy's had his free speech. You're having yours now. Kate's been in touch as well.
Hi, Peter. It's Kate from Leeds. My God, Andy. My God, Andy. Why don't you talk about the far left? About the far left causing trouble? About the police bringing them in on coaches? The far left wanting to cause trouble? You haven't got a clue. You've obviously not got a clue. How disgusting are you? How disgusting are you? Lucy Connolly for saying hurty words when paedophiles are walking the street. Is that what you like? Because I think that's what Labour does. Labour likes to have paedophiles walking around on the street. You're just disgusting.
Kate, I don't think Andy's disgusting. I think Andy is a good guy who I think is wrong on this. I think, you know, I don't agree with you with that level of disgust, clearly, in regard to Andy. I think, you know, he did talk a little bit about the far left. He did talk a little bit about those pro-Palestinian marchers. He did talk about some of them being supporters of Hamas, for example. He criticised the fact there haven't been nearly enough arrests and so on. That is something he did say, and I just want to be fair to him about that. In regard to Lucy Connolly as well, look, it wasn't hurty words that she put. She was and pleaded guilty to, whether she should have, whether she shouldn't have, that's another matter. But maybe she was badly advised, but she certainly pleaded guilty to inciting violence. She's been jailed for that. I don't think she should have been jailed for it. I think that's too much. I think she should have been given a police caution and sent on her way and told not to do it again. I think she was made an example of. I don't think she should have been in prison at all. Andy clearly disagrees with that. He thinks she should be in prison and he's glad that she's in prison and all the rest of it. There are a lot of people really, really angry about what Andy said. I definitely want you to have your say, but I just want to remind you that Andy is a human being as well. Matt has been in touch about our debate earlier on.
Peter, Matt in Hove here. Just your debate desk guests. Andy is insufferable. And I very much like the way Matthew Goodwin Freeman puts his points across, but can you just pass on a bit of advice? Lose the goatee and wear a collar with that nice blazer. Thanks.
Lose the goatee. How do you feel about Matthew Goodwin Freeman's beard? A question I never thought I would ask. 0344 499 1000. The quiff today, quite a substantial quiff, which is apparently all natural. So, I mean, I think that is a big debating point, but I feel that Andy will perhaps be a larger debating point. Quite a few people in touch, including Caroline in Glasgow. He says, regarding bringing an English flag to a protest, surely the point being made is that the British people should come first. They demonstrably do not, and that is the biggest issue for the community as well. David in South East London says, as a law-abiding, once patriotic citizen, as a serviceman, civil servant, etc., I now will only ever say two words to our inept, woke PC corrupt police service. Lawyer now, says David in South East London. Dave's been in touch and says, good morning, Peter. Most people who carry a Union Jack are not far right. They're just concerned British citizens who are very concerned about the direction the government is taking us. I'm disgusted with the comments Andy Williams made about Lucy Connolly, who should not be in prison. Jane says, looks as if AI will be getting rid of the laptop class. Anyone with a manual skill should be okay. We always need skilled tradespeople. Jane, that's a very good point. We're talking about that a little bit later on in the programme, actually, about all the different jobs that AI will apparently replace. How worried should we be about these? There are an awful lot of jobs that are safe. Things like painters and plasterers, embalmers, apparently you're safe if you're an embalmer, but that can't be done by AI. Dishwashers, cement masons and concrete finishers, supervisors of firefighters, industrial truck and tractor operators. Those that are not safe or interpreters, translators, historians, sales representatives, writers and authors. I fall into that category. I declare an interest in that, and then I have Political Animals. My book is out on the 16th of September. Better not mention that unless it's editorially relevant, otherwise Ofcom will get me. Editors, statistical assistants, data scientists, archivists, web developers, market research analysts, models. I wonder what they mean by that. Presumably, I mean, my career as a model was stifled early on. In fact, there's a modelling agency in Northern Ireland called Alison Campbell, and they were at the bottom of my road, actually, where I lived in Belfast. And I walked past the shop every single day, and I met Alison Campbell on one occasion, Alison Clark, I think her name is now. And I said, Alison, you know, I've walked past your premises, your model agency, every single day for the last year that I've lived in that house in Belfast, and I've never been spotted. You know, you call yourself a professional. Plenty more to discuss. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots more on Andy Williams still coming into the building, including from Fee, who has sent this voice message.
Peter, just watching your show, great as always. I don't know what planet that Andy political commentator is on. I'm a law-abiding British citizen, born here, live here, contributed taxes all my working life and struggle to pay bills. And I'm fearful I'm fearful for the children and women of this country with what's happening. I'm a normal citizen. I'm not far right. I'm not racist. I'm not a bigot. I'm not a homophobe. And if anything, he's just convinced me to go out and buy a big Union Jack and stick it on the front of my house, just to make a point, because his comments have just sickened me. And to say Lucy Connolly is a vision of far right, sorry, no.
Thank you for your thoughts there. Keep them coming in, 0344 499 1000. And just, look, it's fine to be angry. There's absolutely no problem with that. It's fine to be angry with Andy and what he has said, but there are some voice notes we can't play, because if you swear in voice notes and if you rant and swear, we can't play them. You know, Ofcom will be on our back. We're the home of free speech, but you can't swear on the air, and we're not going to hear something that you've sent in and then play it. So I want a range of opinions. I want to make sure people have their say, absolutely, but if you do send something in that crosses the line and has swear words in it, I'm afraid just to those people who have done that this morning, we just can't play them. We just can't play them. We'll get fined by Ofcom, and we want to remain the home of free speech, the home of common sense. So just stick within the bounds of that if you don't mind. We are the home of free speech. As I say, I want to hear all the different views, including William in Glasgow. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. William, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you, Peter. I was listening to Andy Williams, and most of the people I hear a phone in think he's a disgrace, and I think so also. I'm a 71-year-old Scot, and we're now having I'm actually from Paisley, a small town in Paisley, just next to Glasgow, and we've got these immigration hotels as well. Now, I've never had a demonstration or I've never done anything in my life, but I feel if there's a demonstration, I would like to go down and join it peacefully and tell them we've had enough of immigration. And for Andy Williams to tell us we're far right is it's disgusting. I know you said it's not, it is disgusting, Peter. And let me tell you about Lucy Connolly. Lucy Connolly advised a barrister and a lawyer and a KC to plead guilty because it would go easy for her. Yeah, that's right. And then they crucified her. But because you pled guilty, they're saying she's guilty. Well, what about the other set of people that pled guilty? What about the post office people that pled guilty? How about that one then?
That's a very fair point. And William, what do you think it says where we are that, you know, you, as you say, you've given us your background, law-abiding citizen and all the rest of it, thinking of joining a protest? It's absolutely fine to protest peacefully. I have no issue with anybody at all who goes to Epping, who goes to Waterlooville, any of those protests where there hasn't been a single arrest, there hasn't been anybody deemed to have broken the law at all by the police. I mean, you are someone who... Have you ever been in a protest before, William, and you're thinking of joining one?
Never. I've never joined a protest. I've never broken the law. I've never been a bigot or a racist. But
so what's changed? I'm not saying you're going to be any of those things, William, but what's changed that would move you to actually join a protest? Why have things changed to such a degree?
Well, one of the things you highlighted in your show is 1 million national health services for illegal migrants.
Mm-hmm.
My friend has been waiting 3.5 years for a hip replacement. He's just turned 66 and he only retired recently because he couldn't afford to retire before that. So he's been going to his work for the last 2.5 years, hardly been able to walk because he needs a hip replacement. And we're giving 1 million places in the National Health Service to illegal migrants that have never paid into a system. Come on, is that fair?
It's not fair, and I think you're absolutely right, William, in that fairness is at the absolute root of this. It's not racism, it's not hatred of people because they're of a different ethnicity, it's not hatred of people even that they're foreigners. It's the fact that it is fairness. It is the fact that there are people in this country of many, many backgrounds who've paid into a system, who are not getting value for money, I would argue, from their taxation. And they're paying more and more money. You know, we've noticed our taxes going up. I've certainly noticed my council tax has gone up to a huge degree. And I'm thinking, what do I actually get for that? I get my bin empty just about. I'm not sure there's much more that I actually get for my council tax, but I can see plenty of people around me who don't pay council tax, who have come to this country and contributed nothing, who are getting things that I'm not getting. And William, I think a lot of people share your frustration, and that's what's on those streets in Epping and in Waterlooville.
Absolutely. I've just had enough. Another point I could make just while you're up here, there was a chap at the same time as Lucy Connolly that was actually up for the same charge, and he pled not guilty, and he went to a jury trial, and exactly the same sort of charges as Lucy Connolly, went to a jury trial and was found not guilty.
Yeah.
So the jury didn't even find him guilty.
Yeah, listen, I think, and that's a fair point as well, William, and we know that, you know, justice can be very random. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't think Lucy Connolly should be in prison. I think she should have got a police caution, a slap on the wrist to say, don't send a tweet like that again, it is against the law, don't do it, off you go on your way, or maybe do a few hours community service.
Can I make one more point, Peter?
Go ahead, William.
One more point. With the chap at the Manchester airport.
We need to be really... Do you know what, William? I'm actually going to ask you not to talk about that, because we just need to be really, really careful about that legally. It's not because I'd want to stifle you.
He has been found guilty.
Yes, he has, but it's complicated for another reason, William, which is that, let me just, it's not that I'm trying to stop you commenting on it, it's simply that there might be a retrial of the brother, and I just want to be really careful about that. The last thing either of us will want to do is prejudice the trial, so we'll maybe just leave it on that one, if that's okay, William.
Fine, Peter, thanks very much.
All right, cheers. Good to talk to you, mate. Thank you. Yeah, just on that Manchester Airport thing, William's absolutely right that one of the brothers has been convicted. The other one, it might go to a retrial. We don't know whether there's going to be a retrial or not yet. If we comment on the whole thing in the way that William might have wanted to, well, then we're in a situation where we might be in a situation where he or I or the station or William himself personally prejudices a retrial. I don't want to do that. I want justice to be served. Believe me, we are going to talk about that case in great depth on this programme when the entire process is finished. And William made some really good points there, but I'm keeping him and me and anybody else who wants to comment on that out of court. I want to do that. I want to be very, very clear about that. Thank you to another person who says, morning Peter, great show. In reference to Andy's comments, should we not then ban all flags, face coverings and headscarves at any demonstration? That way no one will be able to be labelled rightly or wrongly as far right or far left. Poor Andy, indoctrination has worked on him. He has a very blinkered viewpoint. Nina says, please ask Andy why the so-called far-right protesters never cover their faces, but other protesters always seem to cover their faces with balaclavas and scarves. Thank you. Loving your show, says Nina in Rains Park. Nina, I'm afraid there is evidence of people on the far-right and the far-left covering their faces at various times. I don't think they have in that particular area. There's a whole debate, actually, Nina, about coverings and whether they're allowed and whether they're not. And actually, it takes, I spoke to Peter, was it Peter Blexley I spoke to about this? It was a senior player, Mike Neville, I think I spoke to, actually, former detective for the Met, and actually it's a senior officer who makes a decision, is it legal or illegal at that particular time to wear a face covering. There are loads of people who wear face coverings for all sorts of reasons. You know, you might be cold and wear a face covering, for example, and you know, it's not illegal. Whereas if you're at a protest, well, if it may be deemed illegal because they need to know who's there and what they're doing. James simply says, in the words of Del Boy, Andy, you plonker. Gary in Bolden, which I learned yesterday is a Tyneside village, says, in answer to Andy Williams, the reason they take a flag is a reminder to the authorities that this is our country and the politicians work for us. Stop being stupid, says Gary. I'll try. And Sean says, nobody coming from France is a genuine refugee. It really is that simple. Let's speak to Tarquin in London. Tarquin, you're on the air. What would you like to say?
And I just want to put it on the record, Peter, that the first time I saw you, I thought, now that is a sexy piece. He should be a model. Alison Campbell is a complete amateur.
Wow. Wow. Tarquin, it's now on the record, but thank you. I'm blushing. But nonetheless, I think you had a arguably more serious point in regard to Andy Williams.
Because I heard you while I was on hold, I heard you mention that. You brought that up, sir, not me.
Okay, fair enough. What's your serious point?
The serious point, which of course made my blood simmer, like most people today, I think Andrew Williams, never heard of him before, never heard of this guy. You obviously know because you invited him on, but a bit like Peter Kyle this time last week, you and I spoke about that. These guys are the best recruiting sergeants for patriots and normal people in this country to get out there and have their voice heard, as is what I want in a democracy. And I think that the way that the boy said something about conflating the Union flag as if it was some sort of virtual swastika in a small minority was quite absurd and yet so predictable, Peter. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think he had any points? Do you agree with anything he said?
No, I don't. I think he was put out there by the XLWs, the extreme left-wing factions. I don't know who's...
No, like, Andy's his own man. I've known Andy now. He's been on my shows now for a number of years. He's his own man. He has his own opinions. You know, he can look after himself as well.
He's got a book to sell. He's got a book to sell.
He doesn't have a book to sell. He's not putting it online. I'm telling you, Tarquin, he genuinely believes this. I think he's wrong, and I challenge him on that. But, you know...
Well, He's wrong, Peter, because it's dangerous now. It's getting to the point where if little girls and ladies can't toddle around getting about their business, as we have since Magna Carta 1688, Bill of Rights et al., then they can't do that anymore. They feel unsafe. Then the government is not fit for purpose, and there must be a general election today, now.
Well, I think you're probably not going to get... I think the chance of a general election today is about the same chance as Alison Campbell recruiting me as a model, Tarquin. But thank you very much indeed for your thoughts there. The investigation, says this texter of the police, in regard to the South Yorkshire allegations, should be carried out by a foreign police force. I'm sure President Trump would help us. Dan in Tonbridge says, for your guest to snipe about Trump making money out of Truth Social is a bit disingenuous. Maybe he should look into how Biden, Pelosi, Obama, Clinton et al. Have become multi-millionaires whilst in office. At least Trump was a millionaire beforehand. Dan in Kent says, I've already made reservations if in the event of a nuclear attack, the pub cellar I'll die of alcoholism by radiation. Drink responsibly, says Dan. Brian F. in Washington. I presume that's not Washington DC, or indeed Washington and Seattle. I think it'll be Washington in near Boston, which is in the north of England, Lancashire. Is it possibly Boston in Lancashire? I'm not sure. Brian says, good morning, Peter. The only person legitimately qualified to investigate the police is Maggie Oliver, who knows exactly what went on from the very start. I'm told that Boston is in Lincolnshire. Is Washington in Lincolnshire? I'm pretty sure it is, if we could just double check that. My English geography is shockingly bad, but it's getting slightly better. Deborah says, Putin will sit up and take notice of retaliation from Trump on the might of the US military, while he will just snigger at Starmer and the UK's capabilities in the event of an all-out conflict. Our last nuclear test launch from a UK submarine only scared the shoal of fish just off the stern where the missile plopped into the ocean. Thank goodness for Trump, says Deborah. Thank you for all your messages. Keep them coming in. Keep the phone calls coming in as well. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason in the Lake District says that Washington is in Tyne and Wear, northeast, near Bolden, near the village of Bolden, which I've found out. It's a while since I've been to the northeast, actually. I had a friend at university who lived in Durham, and we spent quite a lot of time, actually, in Newcastle and Durham, and enjoyed that very, very much. Lovely people up there, very, very welcoming, and reminded me quite a lot of home, actually, in Northern Ireland. Maybe it's something to do about the lines of latitude. Jason also says maybe it's time to introduce Andy Williams as the far left political commentator. Let's hear some more voice notes about Andy. Tony's been in touch.
Good morning, Peter. Great show as usual. I've just seen your little debate panel with Matthew and the guy called Andy. I'm absolutely staggered with what I've just seen. With what the accusations and the alleged balderdash, as I'll call it, that Andy has come out with about people carrying an England flag, being proud of their country. The immigration issue is out of control in this country, as we all know. And Matthew's actually right. The people that have crossed the channel have broken British law. But have they broken international law? So I thought the whole point of Brexit was to keep us sovereign and protect our borders. And continual failures by Tory and by Labour governments is all too clear to show with the numbers that we're seeing. So as far as Andy's opinion, we're all entitled to opinion, it's for the birds, as far as I'm concerned. And he's more than welcome to go and feed the birds in the channel and provide a home and a shelter for anyone staying in a hotel.
Tony, great message. I agree with a lot of it. We like words like balderdash. Balderdash are good. We can broadcast balderdash, that's good. Although, Tony, I'm afraid you went over the 1 minute limit by 12 seconds, and Tech Up Dave is very grumpy about that. I mean, Tech Up Dave's usually quite grumpy anyway, but he's even more grumpy this morning, and not least because Luke, the Vision Mixer, has eaten all the biscuits. Anyway, lots more to just debate about Andy's thoughts. Darren has been in touch with a legal 30-second message.
Morning, Peter. Darren from Suffolk. How you doing? Andy Williams. What a great name that is. Pardon the puns, but where do I begin? I mean, he's living in the House of Bamboo, this guy. I mean, some of these people protesting, I've seen so many videos online of people saying, I voted Labour. And I find it abhorrent about what's going on. I mean, how can he say they're far right? How can you move from being a Labour supporter to being far right? Oh, Danny boy, have a lovely day.
Thank you very much indeed, Darren. And let's hear from Heather now.
Don't this government realise what they are doing to our country, ripping our country apart and ripping our own people a chance of a future in our own country?
Heather, thanks for your thoughts. Just a gentle reminder, please do mute me. Not that I don't want you to hear me or watch me, but just when you're recording your voice note, because we can hear it in the background. Thanks to Penny in Essex, he says, Peter, when you came out this morning with willy waving regarding Putin and Trump, my husband Elliot and I cracked up. Much better terminology than sabre rattling. I loved it. It was hilarious, says Penny. I'm glad you felt that way, Penny. I've actually checked this with Compliance Claire, who is our head of compliance. She's the one who raps you on the knuckles when you get it wrong and also defends you when you get it wrong. She's had many battles with Ofcom over the years, let me tell you, and you're allowed to say willy waving on the air. I did check that with her previously. Thanks to John in Blackpool, who says, morning Peter, you're all debating who should lead an inquiry into police conduct. What scares the bejesus out of me is that this great nation, there is no one we can trust to be fair and unbiased. Sad times for sure, says John in Blackpool. And speaking of Blackpool, what I want to do right now, before I forget, because I will inevitably forget, is to get a message that was sent to me by my brother. Graham is having a birthday on Tuesday. It is Graham from Lytham St Anne's, which is near Blackpool. He's an avid listener apparently to the show. Big fan of Cardi P, I'm told, fellow cat person and pub quiz ninja. He's celebrating today watching Blackpool FC. So Graham, a very happy birthday for Tuesday. On pain of death, I have read out that message. Otherwise my brother would I don't know, probably try to get the parents to rewrite the will or something. Ian has been in touch. He's given me a ring from London. 0344 499 1000 is the number that he has called. Ian, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
I think that Andy most probably wishes you'd had on his namesake Andy Williams singing songs this morning as opposed to him. He must probably felt like absolutely got slaughtered. I don't know if he's aware where Epping is. It is in the country of England, right? The one thing that really annoys me, and this is one thing that the left always seem to do, he never mentioned why in Epping they're actually waving Gaza flags at that demonstration by the far left outside the Bell Hotel. There was no flags from Albania or Romania or Nigeria. There happened to be Gaza flags. Why? God knows, right? The second thing, it's all the banners that are sort of like doing, like with socialist workers. Why? What does that mean? That the mums and dads have got to go, mummy's flag, daddy's flag, mummy's flag, and all that. It just seems absolutely totally crazy.
Speaking of flags, Ian, what did you make of Andy's comments on the England flag on the St George's Cross? What did you make of that?
I thought, look, they're there in England, and what really, and I was going to just mention it, in Europe, every demonstration, there'll always be the French flag, the German flag, the Italian flag. They're very patriotic to their flag. Here, we're not allowed to put the Union Jack or the Cross of St George or the Scottish flag anywhere.
I mean, you are. That's not true, and you're allowed to put them up, and there's nobody stopping you from doing so. I think Andy's point, and I don't agree with him on this, but Andy's point is that some people use the England flag to say, well done the Lionesses, or it's St George's Day, or, you know, this is the flag of my country, I'm going to put it outside the door. And yes, it's sneered at by the Emily Thornberrys of this world. But there are some people who do misuse it, or they're not. It's a symbol of more than just this is the country's flag. I mean, I come from Northern Ireland, where a lot of people will say, you know, the flag is the Union flag, that is the flag of the country, we're going to use it. But I've seen that used to intimidate people, I've seen that used to mark out territory, I've seen, you know, curbstones being painted in red, white and blue. I've seen all sorts of reasons why people use the flag. And Andy's point, I think, and I'm trying to be fair to him here, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, Ian, is his point is it can be used completely for those reasons, but it can also be used by people who are trying to be intimidatory or racist. Do you think he has a point in that at all?
I agree that they do use it, misuse it, but what really annoys me is why we don't have the flags outside town halls or civic centres or libraries or anything else like that.
They do fly them on some days. Certainly the Union flag is flown on some days. But I know what you mean. I mean, if you think about the American flag, for example, that's everywhere. You go in America, the people who hang it outside their houses, you know, every day of the year. It's on loads of public buildings. It's, you know, it's in schools. It's all over the place. Do we need to reclaim the flag, and specifically the English flag?
Yes, because like you go to not just like America. You go to France, you go to Italy, you go to Spain, all, you know,
Ireland,
and they love Ireland, everywhere, and they'll do it with the European flag, the EU flag. But we like here, the left want to get rid of it, but there are town halls that put Palestinian flags outside there.
Yeah.
You know, what's that all about?
Well, there are lots of different organisations and lots of different places like town halls, as you correctly say, Ian, that apparently want to fly any flag. They want to fly the Pride flag, they want to fly the Palestinian flag, but they don't want to fly the flag of this country. Do you think there's a nervousness about that? And why do you think that is, Ian?
I think it's just basically they've got no pride in this country. They think this country got to where it got by sort of bad deeds. But every country, when you look back at Rome with the Romans, what did they do? Just stay in Italy? No, they conquered like what was known of the world. The Greeks, the same thing. The Egyptians and everything else. They've all got bad history. Not everybody is totally 100% perfect. And I can say that from my son. Well,
from personal experience.
Absolutely.
I can too, and let me tell you, thank you so much for your call. Lots in that. Really interesting call there from Ian. Thank you. Glenn's been in touch with a voice note.
Morning, Peter. Glenn in Colchester. I think you're listening to the debate with the two guys. Yet again, the debate was all about flags and far right and far left. Very, very few of the actual issues around what is going on in this country were talked about. It's pure deflection. We need to stop engaging with these people and talking about left and right and flag waving. It's getting ridiculous.
Thank you, Glenn. I mean, I would argue that that was part of the debate. I don't think it was the whole debate necessarily, and Andy certainly said quite a number of other things as well. Glenn, thanks for your message. Let's hear what James has to say.
Hi, Peter. James, Tower Hamlets. Yeah, so I live under Sadiq Khan, who is just rude and arrogant when he's asked questions, and now he asks, going on, could you please write in? It's absolutely disgraceful behaviour. Disgraceful behaviour leads me on to Andy Williams, yeah? He can be a nice bloke. He has disagreed with Starmer. But what he just said, then, if we carry a flag, why are we carrying a flag? Because we're proud of our country. We're telling people this is England. You know, this is England. You're in England now. That's what we're telling them. All right? And we don't want you here. We don't want you here. You come here the wrong way. It's quite simple. Andy Williams, he's just really let himself down, but he's just pushing the left agenda. And that's how they're going to all frame it. Anyway, nearly gone into a minute.
57 seconds from James there. James, thanks for your message. Lots of good points in there, and thanks for keeping under the threshold. Keeps tech up Dave from spontaneously combusting, which we wouldn't want to happen because there'd be all sorts of problems technically. Rob has sent a voice message as well. Let's hear that.
Hello, Peter. It's Robin Starbridge here, mate. Pete, great show as always. And Peter, can I say thank you for having idiots like Andy on? Because like you said, you've got to let them talk, ain't you? Because the more you let these people talk, the more they expose themselves for what they are. I mean, calling everyone far-righters these protests and saying they're buzzed in from around the country. It's the far left that are buzzed in from around the country, mate, not the far right. But yeah, thanks for letting these idiots speak, Pete, and exposing themselves for what they are. Cheers, mate.
Rob, thank you, and thank you for your endorsement of my interviewing strategy. Certainly when it comes to politicians, some people go in for the kill. I just let them talk and let them expose themselves and say what they want to say, because that is often the best way, in my view. Different people have different styles. Loads to discuss in the next hour. We're going to be talking about AI and whether it could kill your job. Also, we'll be talking to the person who challenged Sadiq Khan. Stay with us here and talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, this is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much. A lively show, I'll be brutally honest, a livelier show than I was expecting this morning. Lots to discuss, lots of people still getting in touch about Andy Williams, and you're very welcome to do so. 0344 499 1000. Andy said a bit earlier on in the programme his strong belief that there were far-right protesters at some of those protests against migrant hotels, for example. He talked about abuse of the English flag. Lots of people getting in touch about that. We're going to talk about AI as well, whether it's going to destroy your job, and also the Online Safety Act. Is it actually working? Is it fit for purpose? Is it actually helping people when there are certain things online that people can't see at all now, including a speech by a Conservative MP about rape gangs? Why is that being censored? Elon Musk has hit out about it as well. We'll have a debate on that in a second, because we don't have enough people called Andy on this programme. We've got an Andy and an Andrew coming up in a second on that. Plenty to discuss as well. We'll also talk to the Reform UK councillor who took on Sadiq Khan, asked him about knife crime. He ignored her. So we will talk to her a little bit later this hour. And we'll take your views too. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please. I've said it before, I'll say it again, less than a minute please. Otherwise Tech Up Dave gets angry. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on the main number 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 1 o'clock, and indeed tomorrow between 10 and 1 when I am back, and indeed all week on Drive between 4 and 7 because Jeremy Corbyn's taking a holiday. I'll let you judge whether it's well deserved. Stay with us here on Talk. Just to clarify, Jeremy Corbyn is not on holiday. Well, Jeremy Corbyn might be on holiday. I don't know if he's gone on holiday. Jeremy Kyle, honestly, Jeremy Corbyn, Jeremy Kyle, Peter Kyle, me, it's getting confusing. We need new names. Stephen Millings is in Belfast and says, AI, far too much artificial, not enough intelligence. Christine in the Isle of Wight says, we must reclaim our flags. I've just sent a complaint to Tesco that they have a whole wall of pride trans flags and not a union flag in sight. Frankly, I am now nervous that I may get a knock on my door from the police, says Christine in the Isle of Wight. Well, Christine, we won't be giving out your address, don't worry. Maybe Tesco will. Sammy says, loving your show this morning, always making and talking sense. Credit to you all the team. I love your caller. Ian as well, great caller. You certainly was a great caller. I'm sure there will be more great callers between now and 1 0344 499 1000. Let's speak to Andy Preston now. Andy is a political commentator and former mayor of Middlesbrough, and Andrew Allison, who's head of campaigns for Popular Conservatism. The Online Safety Act, the effect of that came in this week. It was put forward and passed under the Conservatives. Labour are implementing it, and actually Elon Musk says lawmakers made a conscientious decision to increase censorship. He said the UK's Online Safety Act is at risk of seriously infringing free speech as a row deepens over measures for protecting children from harmful content. We also had a big political row this week when Peter Kyle, the tech secretary, said that Nigel Farage was like Jimmy Savile and on the side of Jimmy Savile because he was sceptical about the Online Safety Act. I think that was the wrong comment from Peter Kyle, who is usually a pretty sober and straightforward politician. I've interviewed him before. Let's hear the views of Andy Preston on this. What do you make of the Online Safety Act and how it has been implemented, Andy?
Hello, Peter. Hello, everyone. I think the Online Safety Act has caused controversy, I think, because it can be improved, it can be better. But at its heart, essentially, it's an essential and strong piece of legislation that will absolutely do what it's intended to do, which is protect kids. Our laws need updating and upgrading all of the time, and basically big tech companies who keep saying that they will protect kids, restrict access, monitor what's going on, be careful of harmful content, they never, ever do any of it. And they're never going to, unless there is a law in place, unless they're threatened with fines. Their motive is profit, not kids' safety. So the Online Safety Act is about protecting kids. It's not about censorship. It doesn't cause censorship. It's about protecting children from online porn and other things. And just to be clear, apparently 30% roughly of all internet traffic is pornography, and kids can now get that through X. X now openly has pornography freely available on its platform, and that needs to be stopped. If somebody wants to look at porn for 5 minutes or 5 hours a day, that's their business.
Okay, so
but we mustn't let kids have free, unregulated access.
Andy, I'm going to come to you, Andrew, in a second, I promise. But Andy, there's a couple of bits in that. The first thing is that we are already seeing some things censored, even on Elon Musk's platform, on X, as no one calls it, or Twitter, as most people call it, which is, for example, Katie Lamb, the Conservative MP, made a speech in Parliament where she talked about things to do with the rape gangs inquiry. She gave some quite explicit detail about what happened. And we live in a world where this week Channel 4, terrestrial, mainstream TV channel, put out what they even describe themselves as a documentary including pornography in regard to Bonnie Blue, the woman who had encounters, shall we say, with 1,000 men. So the fact is there is censorship, there is pornography available elsewhere, and we know as well that the technology will always be in advance of the legislation. The legislation is already out of date. There are loads of 13, 14, 15-year-olds, older people as well, getting VPN technology as well and bypassing all of this. So it's a law that is stopping people saying things like speeches in Parliament. Is it actually stopping the exploitation of children? Is it actually stopping children accessing pornography? There are big questions to be asked there, Andy.
Peter, I think that it is totally believable that some kids are using VPNs and other means to get around the age restriction. I totally believe that. But there are also kids that are using older adults and false ID to buy booze. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have a law that stops you buying booze under the age of 18. I don't think that's a good argument at all. I think, secondly, what the Online Safety Bill does, it forbids, it stops, it prohibits people like X, Meta and others from displaying or promoting illegal content or content that breaks their own safety rules. And that's all they're required to do. They aren't required to do anything else.
OK, let's speak to Andrew Allison about this. Andrew, what is your take on the bill itself, the Act itself, and what Andy Preston has said there?
When this was first going through Parliament, I and many other people said that this would be a census charter. It's not specific enough. For example, it's already illegal under the Suicide Act of 1961 to assist suicide or encourage someone to commit suicide. So I think it's all about using existing laws to and enforce them properly.
And that is a very, very good point. So was this legislation, in your view, necessary in any form, Andrew?
No, I don't think it was at all. I was recalling this morning something that David Cameron said when he was leader of the opposition, where he said we've got to stop treating adults like children and children like adults. What all this legislation does is treat adults like children. There's been all sorts of cases during the week, and the tech companies, of course, and the social media companies as well, Peter, didn't really need an excuse to be censorious in the past. But Benjamin Jones from the Free Speech Union was listing some of the things that have been banned on X, and himself was censored for listing those things. You couldn't make it up. So this is just going to get worse. Just enforce existing laws that we already have. If they need tightening up in the online arena, then yes, tighten them up, of course. But we certainly didn't need this.
What do you make of what Andrew said there, Andy? And is there always just a rush to legislate rather than trying to encourage the tech firms to do something, fining them? Often these are problems of political will and taking on the giants, aren't they?
I don't think there is a rush, Peter. No, I think this bill has taken years and years and years to get where it is. It's had lots of revisions, quite intelligent ones. I think the most controversial aspects of it were removed. I don't think we do anything quickly in this country, and that's part of the problem. I think that some of our politicians and some of our people insist that a law must be perfect before it's brought in, and that means that we never get anything done. That's one of the reasons stuff takes forever. So I welcome it, and I do agree and accept that it could well be changed and improved, and that can be dealt with in time. Regarding censorship, there really isn't any censorship.
There is, Andy. There is censorship. Well, the fact I've just given you an example earlier on in the discussion, in the fact that an MP's speech has been banned from Twitter because the technology has banned it because of what she has said there. There is censorship.
Well, Peter, that's about Twitter's interpretation of the law. They are not required to do anything other than follow the law and their own self-imposed standards. The government, the public, the Ofcom is not insisting that they do anything other than follow the law and impose standards that they've set themselves.
Andrew?
But the law's far too vague. It's too general. What is harmful? What is bullying? I mean, the tech companies could be fined up to, I think it's £18 million, correct me if I'm wrong, or 10% of their revenue. Of course they're going to err on the side of caution. They don't want to pay these huge amounts of money in fines. They don't want to be constantly in litigation with the government. So, of course, they're going to err on the side of caution. That's exactly what we predicted years ago when this bill was first going through Parliament. It's exactly what's happened.
I think, can I just chip in? I think if for once, literally for once, X struck Twitter is erring on the side of caution, if that is what's happening, I would welcome that, because do you know what? They have shown zero regard for the law, zero regard for their own declared safety standards.
I'm sure they would deny that, Andy.
They will deny that, but in my opinion, zero regard for the safety of children. The pornography they're pushing out, as I say, 30% of all internet traffic is pornography. That's fine if people want to do that, so long as they're adults and they're actively taking that decision above the age of 18 or over. If they're 11, 12, 13, 14...
But the point is there's another issue within this as well in regard to pornography. We had Peter Blexley, the former Metropolitan Police detective, explaining in the studio, I think it was on Wednesday, where he was talking about how, for experimentation purposes and starting to illustrate the point about accessing a pornographic site, he was taken to a third-party site. He said this all on air. He was taken to a third-party site. He was asked for details in regard to his passport. There are mechanisms by which they can do scans of your face, things like that, to estimate how old you are. And he worries about that kind of data being secure and possibly data breaches and being used in regard to blackmail when the time comes. The fact is that we're in the infancy of all of this, and there are a lot of people very worried about it, especially if you are a consenting adult, for example, who is accessing pornography. Andrew, what do you make of that argument and that aspect of this?
Well, it's a worry, and I actually saw that interview that you did with Peter when he explained it. I love the look on your face, actually, Peter, when he said, I was trying to access porn online.
Do you know what, Andrew? That was one of the most surreal 20 minutes of my broadcasting life, because we had a very complicated and legally difficult to report verdict in the Manchester attack, and the fact that radar went down in this country for 20 minutes, and two major breaking stories in 15 minutes, plus the fact that Peter Blexley was telling me about accessing pornography. It was a memorable 15 minutes, let me tell you.
Well, it certainly was. Now, one thing we haven't discussed here is parenting. I mean, you can set controls on your router to restrict certain things that are going through into your home. And of course, parents can do the ultimate thing, shock horror, remove their devices, prevent them from accessing this. Or if you are going to access the internet, make sure that you're in the same room as them. Parenting isn't easy, but it has to be done.
Do you think
Can I just say that? I just think that's, with respect, Andrew, I think that's silly. Parents cannot have booze in their house.
I'm a parent. Hold on. No, I don't think it's silly.
That doesn't stop the kids going blind. One at a time.
Because it's not silly. Because parents can remove devices. They can restrict the internet access of their children. It is possible. I know plenty of parents who do it.
Okay, let Andy Preston respond.
They can, but it is silly. It is silly because the kids can access all kinds of things through friends, through other people's networks, in shopping centres, in train stations. It's not about your own router at home. Parents can lock their spirit cabinet, but it doesn't stop the kids getting an older person to buy them booze. We have to deal with this at the user level, not at the parental control level. Of course, we all want parents to be better, but that's a bit of a red herring.
Okay, final thought then from Andrew Allison, please.
As I said at the beginning, Peter, we warned that this would be a census charter. We warned that the social media companies were moving in a more censorious direction because they knew this legislation was down the pipeline. And because this is such general legislation, it's not very specific in certain instances to do with what is harmful and what is bullying. The social media companies, I don't blame them. I would do exactly the same as them. I would err on the side of caution to make sure that I wasn't fined and I wasn't constantly in litigation.
OK, thank you both very much. That's Andy Preston, political commentator and former Mayor of Middlesbrough, and Andrew Allison, Head of Campaigns for Popular Conservatism. Gents, thank you both very much for your opinions and thoughts on that. Leslie says, hi Peter, so a 16-year-old needs protection online, yet Labour are giving 16-year-old children the right to vote. Stephen Millings in Belfast says, it's sad that Peter Kyle, the Technology Secretary, doesn't understand how the internet works. There are many different reasons why someone would select to use a VPN, not least to keep you safe from the numerous scam hackers online. Porn is a small bit not worthy of banning VPN. He should get a teenager to explain it to him, says Stephen. And John says, it's not about flags and the far right, it's about protecting our children, talking about the debate that Andy Williams has sparked today. We've had Andy Williams, Andy Preston and Andrew Allison. I'm mixing up names all over the place. Just to clarify, Jeremy Corbyn is not going to be the presenter of Talk Drive. It was Jeremy Kyle I was referring to. He is on holiday all this week, and I will be here between 4 and 7, hopefully getting names correct, because it can be confusing, let me tell you, especially when you've got Peter Kyle, Peter Cardwell, who's me, and indeed Jeremy Kyle. There was one occasion when I think Jeremy and I were going to be interviewing him, and then it didn't quite work out, but that would have been an interesting one. Right then, we're going to talk a little bit later about whether AI is going to take your job. Mal Fletcher, who is a social commentator, will be with us on that one. In the meantime, I want to get your calls, 0344 499 1000. And just before the break, let me play a voice note from Teeps in regard to the flag. Lots of people getting in touch about what Andy Williams said earlier on. This is what Teeps has to say.
I just want to explain to Andy why people carry Union Jacks and England flags on these protests. Does he not realise that the whole of the West is under attack by globalists who want to destroy borders, who want to dismantle our culture, get rid of our identity, our languages, our food, our religions, our pride in our nations, our history, and replace it with one big world government which uses our countries just like dormitories for whoever wants to come here. The flag is a statement. It's a statement which says we are proud of our individual nations and we don't want to lose them, for goodness sake.
Thank you, Teeps. Plenty more coming on your views on this and many other matters as well. Get your call in over the break, 0344 499 1000.
The people that we want knives from have knives
prior to the knives amnesties. During the knife amnesty, they continued to carry their knives. After the knife amnesty, the people that are still left with the knives are those that we want the knives from. The people that hand it in are normally law-abiding members of the public that might have found a machete in their garage, unlikely to get into the hands of one of the gangs I've just told you about. So the circle goes round and round.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Stephen is in Manchester and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Stephen, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, first of all, lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Good to talk to you too, Stephen.
You're one of my faves.
Oh, very kind.
I voted for this shower. Right. Because it's like a bit of a northern way of expressing myself.
They say that in Northern Ireland as well. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, because I thought, well, it cannot possibly be as bad as the Tories.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? So here we go anyway. And I'm not going into war rhetoric here, but during World War II, there were certain parts of the Allies that said, get rid of Hitler, the war ends. And there were other people that said, keep him in place because he's just going to do that much doo-doo that the war will end quicker.
Right.
I do not want the Labour Party to oust this guy. I want him to stay in position.
Okay.
Right? Because for the next 3 years, we're stuck with him, so we're going to have to do the pain. Then they'll do the big giveaway, and you know about this, the big giveaway.
Yeah,
Peter,
yeah. You come into an election, everyone gets a massage and a free puppy. Yep.
That's it. But by that point, they're finished. They're finished now. I am apolitical. I voted Tory. I voted Labour. I've never been on a march in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I would go on a march now. I tell you.
What would you march for or against?
I'd march for the the loss of the freedom that we just had with this new bill. For a start, I would the boats. Let's stop them. Remember when Richie sat there? I actually kind of like the guy. Do you know what I mean? I don't dislike him.
Yeah.
But when he said, I'm going to stop the boats, and you're just thinking, you're talking pap.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And I guess what you're seeing now, Peter, is like lots of people around the country, mothers going there with the prams and, waving the flags, saying, we've had enough. And once they start doing that, there's a big problem. Because it's not just like the far left or the far right or anything like that. It's like general great people that make our nation up.
Have you ever felt this way before, Stephen? Have you ever felt as angry as this in your life?
No, honestly, I am. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Labour guy.
Yeah.
I kind of look at an election as it's approaching, think, what's the opposition offering? Well, complete bag of lies from this lot, and I was suckered into it. What the Tories have done over the last 14 years, then you make a decision, and I made this decision, which was, I betrayed my country by voting for them as far as I was concerned.
That's a big statement, Stephen.
That's honestly how I feel.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So, anyway, lovely to talk to you.
Lovely to talk to you too. Thanks, Stephen. Great call. Very interesting. And I think just illustrates the huge frustration that a lot of people have with the country, the way it is, the way things are going, and whether there's any politician anywhere who can really get us out of it. Maybe you think there is. Give me a shout if you want to talk about it. One thing people definitely want to talk about today, no doubt about that, is what Andy Williams said a little bit earlier on. I've had people on Twitter saying, can you put the whole thing up online? Yes, we will. Don't worry. Our social media people will be getting on that, and quite a number of people asking about that, so we will make sure that occurs. I also want to play a few more voice notes and then take a call from Grace. So let's hear from James first on the voice notes.
Anyway, tech up, Dave. I reckon you should have him have old Peter up against the HR department for calling you grumpy for not having a biscuit. You don't get the hump when you ain't got a biscuit, do you? I can't see you being like that. You're a lovely fella. I think you're a lovely fella. You're the only fella that plays my messages, that's for sure.
Okay, that wasn't about Andy Williams. I think it was put on my screen as about Andy Williams. I think Tech Up Dave was perhaps playing a little trick there. I deeply love Tech Up Dave. He's a great man. He can be a little bit grumpy sometimes, but then again, so can I. Stuart, I think, has got a serious message. Thank you to James, by the way. That's very kind of you. And don't worry, Tech Up Dave and I get on very well, both on and off air. Stuart has sent us a message. This is what he has to say.
Hi, Peter. Just a quick one. Yeah, the left seem to always be triggered by words. They keep changing words, and they have put a lot of thought into things like small boats. You know, it's a drip, drip, drip. But also the invasion that left-wing commentator came up with. They don't like the word invasion. But 1066, the Norman conquest invasion, there were about 15,000 Normans that came over, who, in my opinion anyway, did quite a good job over here and left some beautiful things and a great system. So 15,000, what's that? So less than 4 months, something like that, of the illegal invasion that's happening. It's crazy. Anyway, thanks very much. It's a great show.
Thank you, Stuart. I really appreciate that, and interesting points there. With this one from Dave.
Good morning, Peter. Dave here. As an ex-serviceman for the Royal Navy, when you mention a Union Jack, it's a Union flag when it's not on the forecastle of a warship. Just let you know, heads up on that one, mate. Good show.
Thank you, Dave. I always thought that was the case, but I was told it's apparently changed, Dave. I think you're right, but I was told, and that's why I've been referring to it as both the Union Jack and the Union flag, because if there's anyone who's a pedant, it's me, Dave, let me tell you. One more voice note, and then I promise you we'll get to Grace in London. She's waiting patiently. Let's hear from Kitty.
Hi Peter, Kitty from Kent here. I concur with all of the opinions being phoned in and written in about Andy, but I just wanted to actually say what a fantastic guest and contributor Matthew was. I don't think we heard enough about him. I think it was probably only 30% he had to speak, which is a shame because he's clearly a patriot. He clearly is intelligent as opposed to just over-educated, and he loves his country. None of those things can be said for Andy, unfortunately. But anyway, well done, Matthew. More of Matthew, please. Have a lovely, lovely day. Great show as always.
Thank you, Kitty. Fear not, Matthew will be back on the programme. He is a regular, as is Andy Williams, who will be back on this show again. Grace has been in touch from London and has been waiting patiently. Grace, what are your thoughts on what we've been discussing this morning?
Oh, very many things. I think I'm certainly a pedant myself, so we could compete on that perhaps. But I mean, I've heard conflicting things about whether you should call it the Union flag or the Union Jack. But if we trace it all the way back, ultimately what we've got on the English flag is the St George's cross, and the reason St George would have had a cross on his shield is it's an execution weapon, and it's the execution weapon with which Jesus was killed. And Jesus died, we believe as Christians, I know most people don't believe this, but the whole idea, the reason that St George would have had this is because people who did follow Jesus believed that he died to take our sin upon himself. And so I find it ironic, when I think about that, I find it ironic that now quite a lot of people, when they're waving the flag, they're kind of saying in one way or another, aren't we great? And actually, it's kind of the opposite of the original meaning, which was actually, no, we...
Well, the meaning of a cross, perhaps, but there are Christians who and others who proudly wear a cross to say, you know, the cross is empty, Jesus gave up his life. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And it is a symbol, even though it's a symbol of execution, as you correctly say, Grace, it's also a symbol of pride as well. But, I mean, many people won't know that, and many people will simply say a flag and say, that's the flag of our country, we should fly it.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, you're right. Obviously, some people wear a cross. I wouldn't say that it's about pride. I think the people who wear a cross, for the most part, still understand that it's because, you know, of our sin. That
totally, and I totally get that. But they're also saying that, look, the cross is empty. Jesus is risen. Yeah. That is something to celebrate because he in the view of Christians, that, you know, people can be cleansed of sin. So it's a positive symbol for many Christians. Yeah,
of course. But it's kind of it's positivity derived from knowing that we've had our sin paid for if we choose to follow Jesus, as opposed to thinking, aren't we great? And that's kind of the message that I seem to get from most people who wave the English flag now. And I think that what Andy Williams was trying to ask, I know everyone seems to hate him, and I don't think that he should have gone on in the way that he did necessarily, but what he was actually saying, so far as I could hear, was not no one should wave a flag. He was asking again and again, why are they carrying the flag? Because ultimately flags, like you say, they're national symbols, and they're not words. And as someone just pointed out, words seem to change their meaning all the time. So I think we need to have clarity about what we mean. I think quite often there are people who might be on the right and on the left who don't actually completely disagree with each other, but they end up thinking that they hate each other because they're not completely clear about what they really mean. So I think it's good to be clear about what we mean. And I think
and this is exactly the reason.
Why is he carrying the flag? Why are they carrying flags?
And this is exactly the reason I love my job, because I love hearing views from people I disagree with. Sometimes I've disagreed with you, Grace. Sometimes I disagree with Andy, and that's okay, because then it reminds me and challenges me and reminds me why I think what I think. Grace, I wonder, would you fly a flag? Is that something you would do? Would you carry a flag? Would you have, you know, Matthew Goodwin Freeman earlier on today had the Union flag on his little, handkerchief, which was in his pocket, for example. Is that a symbol you feel comfortable with, that shows your patriotism?
I don't feel massively uncomfortable with it, but I wouldn't see any particular reason to carry it or fly it. I feel like, you know, most of the people who are around me are British, so why would I need to wear a flag saying something about Britain? Maybe if I were living in another part of the world and I wanted to remind myself of home, then I might have a tiny little badge or something. I don't know.
So I have a weird...
in Britain, I don't feel
I have a weird relationship with the Union flag. I'm not ashamed of it. It's not something that I, in any way, am embarrassed by. But I do have a weird relationship with it because I've seen how it has been used, and in some ways, not every way, I can see slightly where Andy is coming from on this, because I have seen in my life, you know, I've seen people waving the Union flag, for example, and the Irish flag, not to say I'm proud to be Irish or not to say I'm proud to be British, although that's part of it sometimes for some of those people, but actually specifically to intimidate people, to mark out territory, to do things like that. So Andy's right in that flags can be used in different ways. Whether he's right that they're used in that way at those protests, I'm not so sure. But I do think we need to rethink that. And I think we need to reclaim St George's flag as well. I mean, Scottish people love the Scottish flag. I think it's a beautiful flag. Welsh people, you go to Wales, Welsh flag is everywhere. It's all over the place. But in England, it's seen by many people as a racist symbol. It shouldn't be, I don't think. And I just wonder what your perspective on that is, Grace.
I think, as you said, because some people have this association and seeing flags used in a certain way, they end up feeling that that's what it represents. And I think that's probably true of lots of symbols. I'm trying to think of some other examples now, but I guess some people might see, I don't know, a pride flag or something.
Well, what about the cross? The cross is I mean, back to the start of our conversation, Grace, the cross is a symbol that, you know, some people use in very many different ways. Some people use it to profess their Christianity, and some people use it for lots of other different ways as well, and for, you know, with evil and all the rest of it. Grace, sorry, final thought, Grace, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, I have seen, you're right, actually, you make a very good point. I have seen recently some people online using it as a symbol in the context of what they're saying, as a way to kind of be tribal and to say, I'm against these people, and that's just not the point of what Jesus did on the cross.
Okay. Grace, thank you for that. Grace in London there. And Tech Up Dave informs me that both the Union flag and Union Jack are acceptable names for the national flag. Another Dave sent me a voice message about that. Apparently, they're both terms are considered correct. Dave is absolutely correct when he says that Union Jack is more commonly used when the flag is flown on a ship, but officially both terms are considered correct. So there we are. That is one less thing, for me anyway, to be pedantic about, which, to be honest, I feel a slight sense of loss. Thank you to Dave, another Dave from Swanley, who says, I'm confused. Andy, another confusing Andy, kept referring to porn and Twitter. He was trying to get us to believe that the majority of porn comes through Twitter and associate Twitter with porn and not freedom of speech, etc. Not once did he mention that 100% of porn comes through the porn companies. This is the beginning of censorship, says Dave from Swanley. Well, look, there is pornography on Twitter. There's no doubt about that, and that has been affected by the Online Safety Act. So I think both of you have a point to make there, certainly. We'll take more calls, texts and tweets as the show goes on. We'll also speak to the Reform UK councillor who confronted Sadiq Khan in regard to knife crime, And we will ask the question about AI. How's it going to affect our jobs? Are they going to disappear? Am I going to be gone forever? Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's talk about AI and how it's going to affect your job. There's been a big piece of research about the jobs most at risk from AI and the jobs least negatively impacted by it. If you are, for example, a roofer, if you're a gas compressor, if you're someone who is a floor sander and finisher, if you're a pile drive operator, if you're a dredger, if you are an embalmer, for example, your job is not going to die. If you're a painter, a plasterer, a nursing assistant, a hazardous materials removal worker, you are safe from AI. You will always be needed. There is no issue. However, if you're an interpreter, a translator, a historian, a writer, an author, a telephone operator, a ticket agent, a travel clerk, a broadcast announcer and radio DJ, a concierge, a political scientist, a mathematician, a technical writer, or a business teacher or public relations specialist, it's all going to go a bit Pete Tong for you because AI is going to take over your job. This is research that has been taken, that has been done. And the metrics have been calculated. Let's speak to Mal Fletcher, who's a futurologist and social commentator. Mal, I'm really interested in this, not just because I might be out of a job in 10 years, but also the question, I suppose, is about the education system, about schools and third level education, the careers advisory service, things like that, preparing the next generation, not just people in jobs at the moment, where it may die out when they retire or may remain for some time, but actually about whether we're preparing young people for jobs that may not exist in 10 years, sending them off to university and saying, stack up your 60 grand of debt for a job that might disappear by the end of your course?
Yeah, I understand what you're getting at, Peter. Thanks for having me, by the way. Look, I think we do need to teach things like digital literacy in schools. People of all ages, in fact, need to be better educated in how data is collected, how it's analysed and used by things like AI. And I think data literacy should go all the way through the school curriculum, right up through university. It would certainly help people to avoid going down the rabbit hole of advanced technologies and being paranoid, essentially, about what they're likely to face because of things like AI. It would help us think more critically and strategically about it too.
I wonder as well about the government, about education departments, you know, on a government level. Do you think there's any real sense of awareness or understanding of this? We've been debating the Online Safety Act. I'm not asking you about that, Mal, necessarily, but certainly it seems that the legislation and the preparation that government puts forward for a lot of these things seems to be hopelessly out of date.
Yeah, it probably is. Governments are more focused at the moment, at least ours is, on attracting innovation and attracting finance for AI, not so much on talking about things like the ethics that should govern the future development of AI. And this is going to be important going forward. We need codes of ethics to guide and perhaps limit research and development of certain types of AI that could, for example, include AI weapons of war. It could be applied to areas of medicine where machines handle very sensitive private data. And those recommended codes of ethics, which should, by the way, draw in debates from many disciplines, ethicists, technologists, philosophers, scientists, educators, many different groups, those must be backed by government regulation. And the future capacity of AI is way too powerful to be left in the hands of big tech leaders who have already shown, I think you'd agree, they're either unable or unwilling to self-regulate. And when they do, it's almost always in favour of profit rather than the common good.
But can governments keep up with the advances in technology? Can they legislate? We've seen the Online Safety Act, for example, taking years to get to the statute books. Some of it's already out of date. The technology is just not understood. The legislation is not going to regulate it properly, is it? Especially when you have global companies who don't care about things like fines of even, you know, £20 million or 10% of their profits.
That may be true, but Peter, we have seen with the area of genetic engineering that limitations do play a role. They do have an effect. It may not wipe out abuses altogether, but it would certainly give some benchmark as to what we're willing as a community to accept and what we don't. And I think one of the challenges we have with the whole AI area is that government needs to understand the difference between human skills and AI skills. And AI skills are changing all the time. Microsoft hasn't done us a great favor with these tabulated results because AI is changing all the time in ways that even its technologists don't understand. They don't understand how it trains itself these days, and they came up with the term deep learning for that. But human beings will always be needed in at least 2 or 3 areas. One of them is empathy. And so we need to be going back to schools, training young people for empathic responding right from an early age. We're always going to need people who understand and relate to human emotion. AI can fake empathy, but we know it's not the real thing. In fact, I was reading yesterday that a recent US study found that 70% of teens have used what we call AI companion apps in place of human friends.
That's right. You know, those have been, I've done stories on that before, and having girlfriends and that are AI, having people who they tell about their problems and so on. It's something I find pretty worrying, although the loneliness epidemic maybe could help in some way. Mal, thank you. We'll talk again. Mal Fletcher is a social commentator and knows about he's a futurologist as well and an expert in all of these matters. What do you think of that? Are you worried about your job going, or maybe you're delighted? Maybe you are someone who's going to be saved by AI. You're going to be in even more demand if you are, for example, a machine feeder and off-bearer, if you're a dishwasher, if you're a cement mason or a concrete finisher, if you're a massage therapist, for example, a surgical assistant. Those are the jobs. Roofers, those are the jobs that are safe. Cleaners, for example. Lots of those jobs safe, lots of the jobs, like mine, not safe because of AI. Hopefully I'll still be here in 10 years, but you never quite know. Lots to discuss, and we will in just a second speak to the Reform UK councillor who took on Sadiq Khan on knife crime and was rebuffed. We'll get her story in just a second.
people that we want knives from have knives prior to the knives amnesties. During the knife amnesty, they continue to carry their knives. After the knife amnesty, the people that are still left with the knives are those that we want the knives from. The people that hand it in are normally law-abiding members of the public that might have found a machete in their garage, unlikely to get into the hands of one of the gangs I've just told you about. So the circle goes round and round.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I want to talk now about one Reform UK councillor who attempted to confront the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. He, of course, had his security people. She was rebuffed. Let's play the video now of what Leila Cunningham said to the Mayor of London.
Mr. Khan, I'm a Westminster City Councillor. I just wanted to ask you on your thoughts on knife crime going up by 60% in the past 2 years. No, this is the Met thing. Knife crime 60% up, and you don't care. Nothing to say? Nothing to say? Nothing to say about knife crime going up? 81,000 phones stolen? Nothing, you don't care?
If you want to write in.
If you want to write in, they say. Great. Mr. Khan, will you accept the debate for Nigel? He's being booed as we go inside. So I asked him, he wouldn't speak to me about a 60% increase in knife crime in our city in 2 years. 81,000 phones stolen. He wouldn't talk to me, he looked down on me, he wouldn't even bother answering.
That is Leila Cunningham, who joins us now. You may not have heard what Sadiq Khan said to her, which was say hello to Nigel, referring to the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, of course. Leila, what did you make of the Mayor of London and how he responded to you?
I mean, it was the usual, it was the condescending answer. When I asked him, he said, say hi to Nigel. And for me, that's not leadership, that's contempt. These are serious matters and they're serious numbers. And I wanted him to look at me and go, I know it's happening, it's heartbreaking, and I'm trying to do everything I can. Just to acknowledge it even. You know, he goes on trade trips and likes to punish motorists, but I'd like to see that same focus on punishing motorists and catching motorists out as he has for criminals, but he doesn't. We have more knife crime than any European city. And
it's clearly a huge problem, and you mentioned phone theft as well. I don't want to be too London-centric, of course, because it's right across the country as well, as we know. I just wonder if you think that there is anything properly being done to deal with this. You attempted to question him, he wouldn't answer your questions. Do you feel any progress is being made on these issues?
I don't. When the numbers are going up so drastically, I don't see more visible policing. I feel, I find it quite insulting actually that they say they've got an elite force to monitor anti-migrant protest. What I want to see is an elite force to tackle knife crime. I want to see an elite force to tackle the massive rise in rape. But we're not seeing that, and they're not focused on policing. I know that Yvette Cooper said that she's going to, they brought in this new legislation which makes zombie knives or some kind of knife illegal, and you get up to 6 months. That's already in place. You get caught with a bladed article, you can get up to 6 months. And the second time you get caught, it's mandatory minimum sentencing. So they like to announce these kind of fluff policies, but you don't see any action on the ground, and that's where it counts. Was
your strategy the best way to get an answer out of the Mayor of London, do you think? Because they said write in. I mean, he would perhaps argue that you sort of ambushed him on the street with your phone and so on, shouting questions at him. Is that the best way to get answers, do you think? Or maybe you just felt that was the only way to get answers?
So I didn't have a phone. I am a Westminster councillor. He was in Westminster, and I've seen him not give answers. I've never seen him actually respond to a question that challenges his leadership. And it's frustrating. And it affects me personally. I have teenage boys who are scared of going out and are scared of getting stabbed. Residents are the same. It affects us all, and it affects the families of the victims, and it also affects other parents because it is mainly youth related. And that's the only way I could get any kind of answer. I just wanted him to acknowledge it. I'm just thinking, how many more stabbings will it take for him to say, yes, we have a problem, and to actually dedicate resources to him? You and I know, Peter, that if he wants to get something done, he sure as hell can do it. I mean, if I'm going to central London, I make sure I pay my ULEZ or my congestion charge, because I know within 2 days I'm going to get done for, and it's going to double. I want to see that focus for keeping us safe, for public protection. All he does is go on trade deals. You can't fight crime while you're in Nigeria. You have to be at the front line, and you have to acknowledge it.
Okay, thank you, Layla Cunningham there, Reform UK Westminster councillor. Thank you to Jeremy in Newbury as well, who has sent me a text to say, the flats where I live, there are 3 that have large Union Jacks hung from their balconies permanently for many years. I find them intimidating, says Jeremy. I genuinely believe that is the intention. Let's speak to Andrew in Birmingham. Andrew, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hi. I think like a lot of other voters in this country are getting quite frustrated with the lies and the way that we're getting gaslighted by Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. And from my perspective, I wanted to phone up because obviously illegal migration is probably one of the big things that a lot of people are sort of looking at right now. And I have a friend who is I wouldn't call him a property tycoon, but he has a lot of property that he rents out. And obviously we hear that that the Labour Party are going to be moving people out of hotels and into accommodation, and we've all got our views on that. But I just want you to really come on and just say what is exactly happening, because he's just bought a property in a place called Dudley. And it's commercial properties on the commercial use on the ground floor, and then there's about 16 or 18 flats above, both single bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. At the moment, all he's doing at the moment is just giving it a very, very light cosmetic lift.
Sure. Yeah.
And he got contacted by a company on behalf of the government. I can't remember the name of the company.
Don't worry, we'll maybe not name the company if we can avoid it, but just tell us what's happening with all of that. Yeah.
So basically, he's been offered 170% of market value on his single occupancy rooms,
right,
and 195%, almost double, for the 2-bedroom apartments. He's also been offered the money up front, so it works out about £100,000 up front.
And this is for who would be in those rooms then?
Illegal migrants.
Right. Okay.
And then on top of that, he asked about maintenance. He's been told that he doesn't have to worry about maintenance and taking care of it.
I mean, that is a very, very good offer for your friend, and there will be a lot of people who will just not resist that. And that, I think, illustrates, Andrew, very, very well the pressure that is going to be on the social housing market and the private rented market as well, because
100%.
And that is, I'm sure there were people who say that's disgraceful. I believe it's disgraceful. But for your friend, would you blame him if he took it, Andrew?
Well, no. I mean, he was umming and ahhing, and I said, but what are you going to do? I said, Andy, I have no choice. It's a
lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's upfront. It's maintenance free for 5 years.
But that just shows, Andrew, doesn't it? It just shows the priority that is being put on these people and the lack of priority that's being put on people who are indigenous to this country.
Plus, absolutely, and plus, what I can't understand is why can't they buy these or rent these at normal market value?
Yeah.
Because the main reason
there's demand enough already, isn't there, Andrew? So that is a baffling point. Listen, we're just going to have to leave it there, but really, really interesting call. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. Just want to get a few texts in before the end of the show. Jason in the Lake District says, AI cannot do my job, but then neither again can my wife. She's listening to the show, says Jason, risking the wrath of his wife there. Peter says, Tad, US nuclear submarines are highly mobile anyway. They're always on the move to guard against detection. They have global reach. A sub only has to get close to far, shorter range tactical cruise missiles, which make more sense. Former US Secretary of Defence Robert McNamara declared nuclear weapons exist only to deter one's opponents from using nuclear weapons. They have no other military value whatsoever. I don't think we need worry too much about a nuclear war just yet, says Tad. I've read Bob McNamara's autobiography. It's a fascinating read and I highly recommend it. Another person says, Peter, am I being thick? The online safety bill is supposed to protect children, yet Labour are following the Tories and ferrying in thousands of feral men who are a danger to children. Is this pure incompetence or are they just complicit? Angela says, your caller is disgusted at Andy has a point. I'm sick and tired of this left and right hate rhetoric for being called a far-right racist troublemaker. I'm an ordinary peace-loving person who doesn't want undocumented men wandering our streets. Why is that wrong? Andy should respect how we feel. Thank you also to Shane, who says, you're sounding good here in Australia. Thanks, always love the show. Really appreciate that. Shane, also appreciate this one from a person who says, you seem a bit insecure, Peter. Your job is safe. Don't forget there's only one of you.